Good afternoon, Councillor Parkinson. I have everything ready to go. We are live streaming now, so you can start at noon.
Thank you, Amanda. Will do. Welcome, everybody. All right, well, Dean was there, but maybe he'll be back. But I think since it's 12 noon, I'd like to call the meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee to order and acknowledge that we are meeting on the shared traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. Could I get, I should get everybody to check in here. Councillor Baxter.
Here.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Present.
Mayor Martin.
Present.
Councillor Day.
Present.
Councillor Logan.
Here.
And Councillor Jansen.
Present.
Great. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Kobayashi, any discussion? I've lowered all hands. If you want to discuss, raise your hand again. Seeing none, any in opposition? Agenda is approved. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes, please? That's the minutes of the November 16th meeting. Councillor Baxter. I lowered all hands. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, any in opposition? Seeing none, those are approved. Public participation. Amanda, I don't believe we have any public participation, do we?
No, we've received no submissions or requests to speak.
Thank you so much. Mr. Earl, do you want to say anything? Mr. Earl, are you going to introduce anything or should we just fly at it? Can you hear us there? So,
Good. Sorry, can you hear me now?
now we can hear you. Yes.
Excellent. We're ready to go at your direction and we'll be starting with development services.
Correct. Okay, so then that moves us to 5.1 development services. Going to start with, if I may, to have a general discussion on any topics and then we'll delve down into the slicing and dicing. Brent, do you want to lead us off on this or who wants to?
Thank you very much, Councillor Parkinson. Through yourself as the chair, I'd like to do a brief introduction, and I'm more than pleased to have all of my staff here and all available to answer the questions. So I'm pleased to introduce Development Services to committee today. At present, I'll start with the makeup of our team and then go through a little bit of the functions of how we go. So our present team is 4 team members, which include a manager, an assistant to the team, as well as myself as the director. For the future, We intend to add one new member into 2021. That'll replace our vacant seat under the manager title, because we did create a manager to the development services team this year. And so our future team will consist of 4 plus a manager, plus the director, plus an assistant. We are responsible for the processing and receiving of active development applications. They include rezoning applications and OCP amendments, development permits, development variance permits, subdivision, the Board of Variance process, and right through intake, right through delivery, business licensing process, tree permits, as well as the on-site aspects of development services in the delivery of our products and goods. In 2020, we did see some challenges. We lost a couple of key members of staff, and we're pleased that the existing team made up for that sort of loss. We also had a person go out on sick leave. We also had COVID, which allowed us, the team, to transition into virtual meetings and remote coordination. All of that while we were having an increase of volume and increased complexity to each file that we touched. This department, though, uses all of the departments of the city in the functioning of its delivery of services. We work with, in close proximity to, the fire department, the finance department, the engineering department, long-range planning or community planning, administration, public works, and building, in all aspects of the delivery of services. And we endeavor to have one file manager of a product from tip to tail, so we can deliver consistency of service, consistency of approach, and consistency of end product specs. We work to provide a coordinated response. By liaising through the referral process with all those previous mentioned departments, we act to facilitate all of their comments into active file dissemination, so it can either be presented to council or to the director for proceeding onto the file. All of the teams, including all of the members of this team, are accessed in the delivery of service. We're pleased to announce that our service level has been maintained despite the complexity increasing and the growth of files through this interesting time that 2021 has been, and that all of that has been responsive to our development community. We have various choices for committee and council as we move forward. Each staff member is going to introduce a brief aspect of the facet of our services, which are contained on that single sheet and submission to you folks. And then we'll ask committee if they would like to be led through the council expectations, or if council would like to lead, or committee would like to lead us through those discussions as we go forward. And we'll ask as we go into each section and level. So I'm going to ask that Carrie please take us off in the first part of development services discussion, and come forward. I might have that wrong. No, sorry, Jasmine will lead us off in the first part of that. Sorry, Jasmine.
No problem. Hi there, this is Jasmine. I'm a development planner with Colwood. I have been in Colwood for 4 months only, so in my recent and very involved experience dealing with files, I would say that some of the successes of our department lie in the complexity of the applications that we process in volume. I find that one of the biggest strengths of this department, having joined them so recently, is the volume and the complexity of the files that we manage, as well as the speed and the way in which we've found ways to streamline the coordination of information and processes that Brent was speaking to earlier, working with multiple departments and outside agencies to provide quality information to developers and guide decision-making for council. One of the other key strengths of our department, I would say, is the knowledge and expertise of this team, as well as the professional development opportunities that are provided to us as a staff, and the mentorship and growth that happens within our department internally. Now we'll pass it over to Richard.
Richard Buchan, planning technician. I worked in the city as the planning tech since 2016. I received a large chunk of the calls and inquiries to come from the developers and members of the public. Despite the increase we're seeing in applications, we've been able to keep to a consistent and aim for a 24-hour turnaround for inquiries and responses. Also, we've been able to strengthen cities' processes such as the Board of Variance so that it's a viable option for minor variances that are to address a hardship. And I think I'll be passing it on to Dennis now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's Dennis Carlson here. I'm going to speak briefly about challenges and opportunities. Oh, sorry, we're up. Carrie, you've got.
Hi, this is Carrie speaking. I would also like to add that we are very pleased with the success of our asset management program for land assets. Land assets include road, park, and other statutory right-of-ways, for example, pedestrian pathways. Development Services provides annual reporting of the land assets obtained or removed on an annual basis and provides the information to the engineering and finance departments for integration into the city's overall asset management program. The other aspect that I'd like to speak to is the role of the approving officer. So the role of the approving officer is that they have a clear understanding of the law, statutes, bylaws, and procedures. They apply consistent judgment, be fair and reasonable in the delivery of service, consider the interests of Colwood, which is the public interest, assist to continually update bylaws and procedures with regard to service delivery and expectations. So I'm going to pass it on to Dennis to carry on.
Now I'm going to talk about challenges and opportunities. So we've captured this section with 3 words: process, tools, and balance. And by process, we mean we've been challenged by a lack of clear processes and tracking of applications, which has often made it really difficult to provide clarity both inside and outside City Hall. In terms of the opportunity, that we are now in the process of changing how we track and process applications to hopefully address some of those issues. Secondly, in terms of tools, we have some outdated policies and bylaws that can result in difficulty in providing up-to-date and accurate information to applicants. And we understand that community planning will be reviewing and updating the land use bylaw and the community amenity contributions policy. So that will be very helpful to us. Lastly, in terms of balance, staff are challenged to balance the timely processing of applications with council's desire for technical information while still maintaining the high degree of professionalism that we expect from ourselves in our work. That has also provided us an opportunity to review the content of staff reports that we provide to council to look and see if there's ways that we can maintain and address those balance issues. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Now we'd like to introduce Carrie Clark. That'll lead us through some of the priorities from 2020.
Thank you, Brent. This is Carrie speaking. Our 2020 priorities are reflected in our successes shared by Jasmine and Richard. The priorities include maintaining a strong team, including utilizing staff through all city departments, for example, through development review committee meetings and referral review meetings. Development Services has maintained and in some cases exceeded development application processing timelines over the previous years, even during a pandemic year. Development Services has supported long-range planning policy development where the opportunity is presented. We have also prioritized land asset management. So I would like to carry on and speak to the 2021 and 2022 priorities. We have broken down our priorities for the next 2 years, recognizing that a key priority is to maintain our level of service through our strong team and application processing timelines. This includes continuing to work across all city departments to realize the OCP through development applications. So for 2021, I would like to highlight a few of the ways we intend to improve on our challenges for this department. And that includes updating our procedures bylaw and related policies, including updating our application forms and fees. We also wish to improve report and permit templates. As well, we are very excited about a request for proposal for small lot design guidelines to go out shortly and to be completed in 2021. 2022 priorities include the continuation of the 2020 and 2021 priorities, but also to implement the Parks and Recreation Master Plan through park acquisition and amenities through subdivision and rezoning, as well as long-term improvements to improve information available to residents and developers, such as informational brochures, online development application tracking system software, and mapping capabilities. So I'm going to end with that and pass it back to Brent.
Thank you very much, team. So that was, sorry, this is Brent Molnar speaking. Thank you very much, guys, for walking us through the priorities as we saw them through this year, our successes and our challenges, as well as our priorities reaching into the future, spanning the next several years and even beyond. We are more than pleased to answer any questions that council may have about the council expectations, any of the successes or challenges, or any sort of question that council or committee may have. Thank you very much. We're open to your comments.
Thank you. Okay, I think general discussion to start with, and then we'll get into nitty gritty. Councillor Kobayashi to start with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to staff right now. I found a very interesting meeting that I sat in with the mayor on and with the CEO last Thursday, and it was stats that I certainly didn't know, and you know, and if true, I congratulate Development Services. You know, the time frame to turn around and get permits, OCP with OCP amendments, it's about 18 months, I think the CEO had said, and if it's within the OCP, about 6 months. You know, it's unfortunate you don't measure that. Like, if I look at the measurements that you have here right now, the only things that we see are some numbers, right? The Development Services funding, and that doesn't really tell me anything really. But you know, I think that, you know, your turnaround times would tell us a lot more. And you know, and if we didn't think that was acceptable, then we'd have to fund you more. Like, you've got to help us help you, I guess is what my message is here, because obviously there's some stats here that I think are pertinent, and I don't think you're showing them right now. Like, if there's, you know, that level of service, you know, even your inquiries and responses. I think I heard Richard say, you know, we do most things within 24 hours. Well, what's most? Is that like 80% of the time, 90% of the time? So for us to understand this and to make some really competent decisions here, some metrics like that would be, I think, would be just so invaluable right now. You know, if we didn't think, you know, for example, if we didn't think a turnaround time for a permit in 6 months, you know, if it's within the OCP is good enough, then obviously we have to look at increasing your funding. So it's that type of metric that we're missing in all this, because I think a lot of good things are being done by Development Services, but it's not really apparent, I guess is my bottom line. So I just thought I'd make that comment if anyone wants to comment on that.
Thank you,
So
Councillor.
through the chair, we as staff are able to talk about any of those things, and we can look at any specific aspect. I've got a sheet in front of me that speaks to it in quite a bit of detail, actually. What we more wish to get across to committee at this level of service review was that the complexity of files are not what they were yesterday. And so while we may see an increase in applications, we're actually also seeing an increase in the complexity, which means that a file to say that we get it out within 2 days is not necessarily accurate, when the fact that the better product and the product that we believe that council expects as well as our community expects may require that extra half a day that's not captured in the standard matrices. However, I can say that in 2020, our rezoning timeframe is less than 200 days, which is staggering. That was a slight increase from 2018, but it is about a 1/3 decrease from 2016 in the time that's necessary, including the complexity increasing of the files. For development permit processing, back in 2016, we were at 100 days. We are now at about 50 days. For development variance permit processing, we're seeing more of them, quite frankly. And those timelines have increased slightly since 2019, which was in around 80 days. We're up at about 120 days because we're including the council timeline in the process, which is less, well, slightly more challenging to map in there. However, that is now covered into our timelines. For Board of Variance applications, our applications have about increased by a third since previous years and increased fivefold since 2017. Our subdivision applications, despite the fact that they have increased and continues to be more complex, we've moved down from about 160 days in 2018 to just around 45 days in 2020. Despite, again, the complexity of the applications, which shows the integration of the department. And I can keep going. For sign permits, we've held consistent at that since 2018 with a slight improvement in service in less than 20 days. And in tree permit applications, our number of applications has more than quadrupled since 2018. However, the average issuance time is 11 days. So where we speak to delivery of service being in a matter of days, that is about receiving an application, responding to an applicant about an inquiry, or asking for a scheduled time to meet staff. And generally within 48 hours, we have scheduled that meeting. Not only that, but we've scheduled months of meetings to be able to go over that and formulate a timeline so we can make sure that our delivery of our processes is calculated. Is there any further or any further questions that would like to be addressed?
No, this is all good stuff, Brent. I think you're missing my point. I want to brag about this, and you're not giving us that information so that we can brag about it, because I think it's just what I learned from the CAO on Thursday, and I went, wow, I didn't know that fact. And it helps us because I could look at this and sort of justify, you know, the budget, or, you know, or increasing if we want to speed things up. But you know, these are the factoids that we are not knowledgeable about, and I think this is a great accomplishment. And I'm looking at this as an accomplishment, not as a criticism. So don't get me wrong. This is an accomplishment, and you're not boasting about it. So don't be so modest. I think you have to. Well, you know, honestly, I would like to brag to the citizens about this. This is good. This is all good information, but you got to feed it to us. That's all my point is, really. Thank you.
You were saying so, Doug.
Chair Parkinson,
Yes,
administration can add to council expectations that turnaround times are regularly reported to council. Would council have a particular frequency of that reporting?
every 6 months.
We will add that to expectations.
Thank you. Thank you. You good then, Doug? Okay, Councillor Baxter?
I have a couple of items I'd like to add under council expectations. Would now be an appropriate time to do it, or do you want me to wait till we get to that particular one?
Either or. I mean, I think we're having general discussions to start with, and we'll drill down to council expectations in the future. So,
Okay, I'll leave it till then.
very good. Thank you. Mayor Martin?
Thank you. Can I have Mr. Carlson expand on his one remark that we're spending a significant amount of time, or staff is spending a significant amount of time talking about technical issues with council? How much time, and is that something that we should be budgeting for? Is that something necessary? I'd just like further information on that, please.
Through the chair. So I think it's become apparent with some of the more complicated projects like Latoria South and Royal Beach that council has a desire for a fair amount of technical information. It is our expectation that more or less that desire from council is going to continue with other rezoning applications. And as I mentioned in my comments, we are now in the process of looking at how we can change the staff reports to include more technical information than we have to date. And we'll be looking for council feedback on whether that addresses some of your needs for having that kind of information provided to you.
Okay.
So, good there? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, so sorry, when do we expect to see that come back to us? I guess, and let me preface the question. I guess the reason I'm prefacing the question is because eventually down this road, we're gonna, our chair is going to ask us that the service level and developmental services be maintained, increase, decrease. I'm trying to understand if this council has a desire for more technical information and we are spending more time with staff answering those technical questions, then do we need to increase our development services levels, or would we be able to maintain it presently?
Brent Molnar, and through the chair to answer Mayor Martin's response. As you've heard many of the team members speak about the growing complexity of the files, and it would be, in our opinion, reasonable for council to be looking for a greater level of detail as the reports are coming forward for rezoning considerations or whatnot that's in front of them, based on that growing complexity. So we're more than pleased to include more of that and bring it forward early to give council a bit of an opportunity to raise those as discussion points. As Mr. Carlson points out, we're looking to integrate that, and you'll see those changes in the new year. And that's where we'd love to hear council's feedback on they would like more, less, it's not enough, or bringing about greater specificity so we can best tailor our reports to council to serve your needs. At the present time, to drill where you're at, Mayor Martin, is I think that this is an aspect of service delivery that we should be endeavoring to undertake as the complexity continues to grow. And right now, I think with the expansion of staff by that one member, it may bleed a little bit into our response times discussion as chaired by Councillor Kobayashi, but not negatively, because of the fact that we intend to bring this forward, intend to unfold it, and receive feedback that we look for more. And we think that we'll have a good patterned result by about mid next year with committee and council delivering that information. So at this present time, I think that it is a service level, but one that wouldn't necessarily be marked as increased service or decreased service, just a council expectation, if I may be so bold.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you. I am on page 27 with the 2019 to 2021 financial overview. And I just looking at the costs for development services overall of just over $800,000. And the funding that they receive from the fees and permit revenue being about 20% of the costs that we incur. So I just would like staff to comment a little bit on that, because my recollection when we've talked about this has been looking at the costs recovery being necessary for this department, and that we didn't ever want to, charge more for our fees and permits than what it's costing us. But it's pretty clear from this table that we're recovering less than a quarter. So maybe could we talk to about how you think that should be at some point in time? What goal are we getting to? Are the residents forever going to be paying for the development of the community, or is there going to be an effort to have development pay its own way?
So I should, through the chair, this is Brent Molnar speaking. If we recall the amount of files that were cited, or our application processes that were cited under the functions of development services, which included everything from rezoning to tree permits. Not all aspects, not 100% of our day-to-day functions are development services. They are the functionings of the city as it revolves around trees and development permits. And all of the aspects of development, which may be a non-recoverable charge on a tire kicker saying, what can I do on this piece of property? It may be 6 months of chatting to a potential purchaser on a land that ends up walking away with no application. Those are the service functions that staff function in terms of delivering the city in terms of the best light. So they're not 100% recoverable on any mechanisms. However, we have stated to council at several points during 2020 that we would be undertaking a fee review in regards to rezoning, subdivision, development permit fees, and variance fees to bring them closer in line. We intend to do that still, but it won't be for 100% of the cost. For example, my costs, just speaking to me personally, aren't directly file related, but related to every file as it comes across in every function of the city. Not to put a target on my back, but that's essentially what I did. So we'll be endeavoring to bring those forward, and we'll frankly have to speak to committee and then council about the aptitude for how those fees should increase. They'll likely be reflective of our adjacent municipalities, and they're often viewed as a competitive resource. And so we intend to table that to council in 2021.
Thank you.
So just if I could butt in here before Councillor Jansen, in your estimation today, Brent, the rezoning fees would more or less cover off the rezoning costs, or where do you think we are? I hear what you say about not everything getting charged a fee, but where we do charge a fee, do we think we're more or less breaking even, or how would you suggest that looks?
Thanks very much for that direct question. No, I would not like to suggest that we're actually striking even on there. And one of the mappings, going back to Councillor Kobayashi's question, how many, what processing time, and what speed is what we'll be bringing into that fee review. Because we know the number of applications, we have been tracking that despite the fact that we don't have land development software. We can look at that rough timeline, rough application processing time, and make suggestions to it. I would suggest, and this is a bold dart throw, unless Jen, who's also sitting in the room, can add a little bit, that we're at best about 80% of our fees specific to rezoning. Subdivision might be a little bit less than that. Development variance permits, about 80% as well, and then deep development permits closer to 90.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Brent and team. I had a few questions I've ticked off along the way. Brent, can you talk about, again, back to staffing, what is it that's left over to be spent in the 2020 budget for you in relation to staffing? Are there unfilled positions, or before we get into 2021 and the need there, have we accomplished everything we set out to do at the 2020 budget?
Thank you very much. We have been operating with half of an assistant. Our very, very valuable assistant of Pat Taylor has done double duty with the engineering and development services team due to an absence there, which is a medical thing. So we're half component on that. We've also promoted from within in the manager position, which left a vacant seat behind that, and that has been vacant for about 2 months. As well as the start of the year, we had a vacant position with Catherine's leaving, which was about a 4-month vacant. No, sorry, 8-month vacancy. Carrie's looking at me say. So we're a full complement now. We are out for interviews, which we have completed to backfill Carrie's position to recreate the 4 base levels of performance. That's at the interview stage, and we're pleased to say that we're out on the references checks on that party. But we have had a bit of a staggering year in regards to staffing. So I can't speak to how vacant we are in terms of funding, but I can say that we should have some space.
Thank you. And then as we look forward along the same line as his worship's, what are we looking at specifically for 2021 as far as staff needs?
So for staffing for 2021, we will have backfilled Carrie's seat as she becomes manager. And so we will have 4 planners, essentially, one of which is a technician level planner. And we'll be looking to integrate a little bit of roles and hierarchy so we can create some vertical growth within the team. But we will be fully complemented up with 4 plus an assistant now, because we've backfilled that role as well to assist Pat Taylor plus myself. So I think that we'll go into 2021 with really progressive team able to manage it. We have great communication with some of our development team, being Omicron at the Allendale lands, as well as Gablecraft on the Southlands, where we know their schedules and timings for what they're bringing forward. And I would suggest that for 2021, we're looking pretty good, but I'm constantly evaluating it and really very much appreciate that question, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you. And the only other question I had left unanswered here, I mean, I know we don't have development software, so it's probably largely paper-based, but are we tracking, I see you have metrics on how long an application takes. So do you have metrics as far as, or are you capturing how much staff time is involved in each application? I don't want to be a burden here, but are you guys capturing that baseline sort of volume of work per person, per application kind of deal?
That's also a very direct question, and thank you very much, Councillor Jensen. And through the chair, we don't have specifics on each application. If we looked at, let's say, Royal Bay South, for example, it alone might have taken 8 months of time. But what you're asking is more specific than that. How many hours within that 8th month were on that one file? And quite honestly, we find that working on a large scale project like that, that's a master plan community, does take its hours because there's master plans, but it can almost be equal to the ma and pa wanting to do a small 3-lot rezoning in a portion of town that may not have sewer. And so while the volume of growth that you expect out of an application may be varied relevant to that application, the complexities are meaning that some of the smaller ones are actually taking more time. We will endeavor to start mapping that better so that we can respond in future years with a better response for that, Councillor Jensen, but we're thin on that one now.
Thank you. And I bet the much talked about software will probably capture some of that.
Hope so.
Thank you. You good, Councillor Jensen? I assume he is. Councillor Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, a good measure of how the department is doing is by the feedback that we on council get from the development community. And I tell you, the feedback has been fantastic. And over the years, I can see how the department has evolved and grown. And I think that speaks volumes. I really do appreciate the volume and the quality of work that's coming from your mighty team. And I do have a question. A lot of my questions have been checked off, and I will echo Doug's comment about help us help you, because I sure like to pound on my chest and say this is how well Development Services is doing. And my one question, and so my sense is that a lot of the work that is being done is reactive. And what I mean by that is you receive an application, you process the application, it's out the door, versus proactive. And what I mean by that is perhaps identifying areas within the community that may be ripe for renewal, and perhaps developing some strategies in terms of how to encourage that renewal in certain areas within the city. Would that be a fair statement, Brent?
Thank you very much, Councillor Logan, and through the chair. Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm going to go backwards a little bit in time in order so I can come forward, and hope you all take this road with me. In 2019, we actually invited the real estate community of Greater Victoria out, and Mayor Martin and I and Nora at the time did a bus tour with that real estate community. And it was the feedback that we received as a community as well as individual staff was that was very well received. And we endeavored to try and do that on an annual basis. Invite the local real estate community as well as the Greater Victoria real estate community out. Mayor Martin can speak to his experience on that, but I think it was well received. We did not do that in 2021. We hit in March into our COVID timeline where we all couldn't get on a bus. And quite literally, it was boots on the ground. We had Tim Pitts in the bus, actively waved our hands around and took people out to job sites, boots on the ground. This year, it's been a little bit softer and more subtle than that. Individuals from the team, myself and several examples, have wandered large developers out. The Omicron piece was initially started by a wandering of that developer on our tar lands, and it was commenced actually with just one specific group, which was the Carson Group, speaking positively about that interaction of being physically handled from active site to active site in regards to our OCP as to where they could see density and land use. As well, in late 2019, the Development Services brought forward for council considerations the rezoning and omnibus consideration of the Chan lands, which were more than keen to be working with with community services, long-range planning, in seeing that come forward to fruition. It's just a matter of time and getting those coming forward. We are also actively working with community planning, is what they're called, which is the new name for long-range planning and sustainability, on some other avenues that have been tabled from the Development Services standpoint. So directly answer your question, we are a reactive team. We do typically have our feelers out there and reach forward into our business community to invite people, and we also tend to meet as a group on what's a tire kicker and what's a reality and where do we think this is going to go, so we can all individually promote an area of growth or not. So we are focusing next on the Wilford area, and we'll be working with our community planning services on looking at that. We've got some recent applications that we're quite excited about seeing there. We are working with community planning. Long-range planning and sustainability is what I'm stumbling around, but community planning to look at the Metchosin corridor for some ideas that have come as a group discussion together, as well as we're more than pleased to assist in the rezoning of the Chan lands for the omnibus consideration as put forward by council and mandated by council back in the end of 2019. And more we're keen to look at other areas and aspects of the city, especially in regards to Colwood Corners land use designation and the mixed use land use designation that's currently in and around the Allendale lands. And we'll be endeavoring discussions for those areas over the next months as well. So while agreed, Councillor Logan, we are reactive. We also see where our hot spots are and know where we need input and reach out for that using our team around us. With the support of the city around us, and I'm very pleased to announce the objectives of the city all coming together. Just maybe not as quick as we'd all love sometimes.
Thank you, Brent. And just a follow-up question. Now that some of the bigger sites have gone through the rezoning process, namely Colwood Corner, Royal Bay, Royal Beach is well underway. With those kind of off the table, realizing there's lots of work still to do on each file, do you see the department's workflow changing now that those big files are moving along?
Well, that's exciting. So when I meant Colwood Corners, I meant the Chan lands, which has still got to be considered. But I completely agree about the other aspects of Colwood Corners. One of the unique aspects of development services is those different disciplines that are all part of the field. Rezoning, to development permit, to development variance permits. And so the strength of the team is actually their ability to morph between the long range planning in terms of a 20-year rezoning consideration down to the actual, we're going to build this under development permit inside the next 18 months. This team has that ability to go from that 20-year down to the present and now and working with our building department. So yes, I do see that the aspects of service delivery will modify slightly from those large scale rezonings to actually what takes slightly more time, which is the application of those to the ground to create that built form. So we're very excited of that morphing because we tend to have service delivery through a file manager. So in other words, those that are invested in the rezoning will be those facilitators as we go on, accessing the team to actualize those products. So a change, but still equal, if not more voluminous work.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baxter.
I want to pick up on something that Councillor Day said and the reply that Mr. Mulliner gave. In particular, Brent, you referred to your job as concerning all files rather than any particular file, and therefore, not subject to recovery. as I understand the law on us recovering the cost of development, we can't actually recover costs in relation to an individual file. We can only recover costs through a fee that applies equally to every development or every class of development, or every particular size of development, but it's a generalized fee to recover the investment the community makes in dealing with development applications. So I would see that a good deal of your salary should be charged to the fees, because a good deal of that work, I presume, would not be there if there were no development. The fact that the development is there is what drives a good chunk of your job, and therefore that money should be recovered. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Baxter.
Chair Parkinson?
Okay. Yes? Go ahead, Mr. Earl.
Thank you. So as council is aware, we're in the early stages of moving to a services approach with respect to attribution of expenses. And so in this particular area, administration will return a year from now and or to whatever degree we can at the upcoming budget process to better articulate or attribute those expenses in this department that are relative to specific development files, such that council can see a better connection or nexus between the fees generated for development services and the costs associated. And we will isolate for you where we are not recovering costs, where we are recovering costs, and where we'll be bringing fee and bylaw changes forward to help us move in the direction that council would like.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. I think sounds like that would be desirous by council. So I think that's a good general discussion. Now let's focus in on successes, challenges, and opportunities. Anything anybody would like to add or revise from what we have in front of us here? And while you all give it some thought, I'm gonna jump in here, and it's under the challenges and opportunities section where you talk about proactive permit compliance, monitoring, surveillance, and enforcement of project conditions once construction has commenced. I'm taking it that's considered a challenge, and I'm going to steal my buddy's line and say that I think all of us are very much in favor of trusting but verifying what goes on out in the field once permits and the like have been issued. So, Councillor Day.
Thank you. Your comment is stealing my thunder almost, in that it is that compliance monitoring that I feel the most concern about. There are a number of developments that have occurred with large geotechnical I don't even know how to phrase that, but large geotechnical structures, walls and foundations, etc., that were a challenge to evaluate for both council and staff as they were being developed. And one of the concerns that I have is just specifically whether or not we are actually keeping tabs on those particular structures that we were most challenged to approve, to ensure that they have achieved the longevity and stability that we anticipated. So I guess I'm looking to identify a challenge in terms of those specific developments that had a question about the safety or long-term viability of something that was built with them are going to be actively monitored in the future to ensure that what we thought was happening, not only did it happen, but it also had the result that we expected. I wonder if staff could address that.
Yep, thank you very much, Councillor Day. And through the chair, we are starting to cross the line, which I don't mind, but I'm going to bring us back to two different points. We're starting to cross the line into engineering works and services, and this will be an item of right-of-way and asset management in the right-of-way. This is what we call our, for example, using the geotechnical particular that you raised, Councillor Day, we call this our rock face monitoring. Briefly, engineering identified over 80 different structures that are contained in some sort of format or other in the city. In 2019, council considered and approved a budget for it. We had overshot our RFP, in other words, too much work for too little money, and we weren't successful. However, we did manage to reach out to a geotechnical partner, understand the constraints, and remap that into this year. And the works is frankly underway. It's with Golder and Associates. And we've had to reduce that scale from those 80 odd systems down to about 20, 30 a year, which will then come about after 3 or 4 years of monitoring with a progressive time frame to go forward. For development service, but that's more of an engineering aspects of the management and control of items within our right-of-way. For development services, one of the things that was brought to bear a couple of years ago was the fact that there was very little control over what was actually being created within the right-of-way and the confines of those property lines as a relation to it. That's a factor of subdivision that we've tightened up on inside the last 2 years once it was identified to be a challenge and also identified to be an opportunity. The challenge and opportunity that's specifically spoken about here is where we issue a development permit, for example, and we ask that permittee snow fence out the drip line of a tree and protect that with non-vehicular movement or tread due to that snow fencing. It is our desire as staff to be able to be out there a percentage of the time to be able to monitor that site and make sure that the conditions in terms of the development permit are being realized throughout. Because we've been so stressed, or quite frankly, so activity-based, to reflect back on Councillor Logan's question, we haven't had that time due to the complexity and the number of files in a COVID relationship, all while trying to keep, frankly, the wheels on the bus. But it is something that we've spoken about to carve out, and it's our goal to carve out a 20th percentage of every file so that we can be able to be active on the ground, boots on the ground. And that's one of our staffing models for 2021, and how we interrelate the department's functions and various processes amongst each other. For our team right now, because we've been stressed with time, we have the benefit of reaching out, and I actually should say benefit and thanks for reaching out to our other team assisters. Engineering, who is more frequent on the ground, we meet with them at the issuance of a development permit and identify the terms and conditions that are relevant to the city to be maintained throughout the construction of the project, so that we can partnership in terms of the inspection of that. We reach out to building for the same aspect. And that's one of the ways and tools that we use our handover meetings at each stage of the process. I'd just like to allow Carrie Clark to add to that, if I may, please.
Thank you, Brent. Through the chair, I'd just like to add that we do, through Development Services does issue development permits, and part of the requirements of the development permit is compliance monitoring that is submitted on behalf of the consultant for the applicant. So what we're talking about here relative to development permitting is that staff are going out and reviewing themselves as well, so that they're the feedback loop. We can see where we can improve on the monitoring and compliance aspect. But I just would like to be clear that it is happening. It is part of the requirements of the DP, and the consultants are providing that work. So for example, we require landscape deposits for landscape plans with the development permit. So part of that would be in order to return that fee that staff are doing, following up on the consultants.
Yeah, just to further add to that, we've got developers that don't understand that compliance monitoring, for example, and will go out there and plant themselves with plants that they've got at Home Depot, and then phone up staff and say, all done. All of our systems for development permit, as Carrie has outlined, are that compliance monitoring. There is a plan submitted by a biologist. That biologist is supposed to inspect those works and ensure that plan is met. So how I'd like to do it is have staff complement that by going out and making sure that they're confident that they're being met as well. And alternately, at the end of a process, we've got some developers that are just like, no, I'm not paying that consultant to go back out again. And no, I'm not paying that consultant to go and tell you that the work is done. You go out and look at it yourself. And so there are systems and files that frankly, we've been chasing for years for that compliance monitoring that we've had to move on with. Because it's very challenging, especially when, well, they start complaining that we still have their money, and darn rights we still do. We haven't met that compliance requirements sign off at the present time. So we're working actively, I would say, on a day-to-day basis to ensure that our partners, and our partners are our development partners, as well as our internal staff partners, as well, quite honestly, as you all, members of council, to make sure that we understand how best to deliver the service, understand what the process is as elected through our bylaws and procedures, and then work with our community to outline those. And we're even going as far as to create next step documents for the developer that helps feed them one step to the other and speaks to this compliance monitoring. So coming back to that base item of discussion, this proactive permit compliance monitoring, surveillance, and enforcement is to best serve our community, to allow staff to see what works and doesn't, to work with those professionals to jointly understand how better to deliver our service model so that the city of Colwood's attributes are held in the highest regard and maintained throughout the life of that development.
Thank you. If I could just perhaps expand a little bit on the same line, I was heartened to hear in your earlier discussion about the one file manager from tip to tail, I think was the term you used. And I just wonder, how far does that go? If you're, for instance, doing a rezoning and somebody's building a subdivision, does your file manager stay on top of the engineering department as they're approving subdivisions and subdivisions are getting built? Or is at some point, would you hand over that file and say it's a subdivision, now the engineers are looking after it? I just want to make sure that there's, a line of responsibility here that doesn't get missed in the middle.
I'm almost stunned. I mean, the group around me can see me smiling, and I just want to thank you very much, Councillor Parkinson, Chair Parkinson, for that question. I'm pleased to announce that we hold with our respective partners in the city meetings, and we call them handover meetings. We have implemented this year a handover meeting particular. So subdivision has been the main driver because that's where I'm going to say the rubber hits the road, and we're expecting a built form after that. We do, and we have this year started up handover meetings about rezoning. This is what the aspects of rezoning says, and we have that with the engineering department, corporate services, or not corporate services, long range planning, I meant to say community services, finance, where it involves finance, and the building team. And we tend to bring in specific attributes for these handover meetings, which may go as far as individual team members in the building department, if not the entire team, and individual members in the fire department, if not the entire team. So we've implemented handover meetings at the successful place and turn or key of, I guess, completion of rezoning. We'll pull a team together and we'll use our development review meeting for that purpose. When a development permit is signed, and we again expect the next application to be that to building department, where again rubber hits the road, we pull them into a meeting as well as engineering to ensure that the service delivery is met and known. Where we also have development permit, we need to bring in the fire department as well as various development variance permit. We need to again bring in all those teams, and so we're doing handover meetings at each of those points. To bring it back to who's hosting that meeting? In other words, that tip to tail service that you started your question at, Councillor Parkinson. That's the one I think I started my smile on, because for a project like rezoning of Royal Bay South, we're going to be expecting 30, 40, 50 individual subdivisions within that, then going down to 200 individual subdivisions within that, probably creating files. And so we've got a master of the rezoning file that'll be then doing handover meetings in regards to each development permit. That'll be then championed by a leader in the team to be able to see that through. They'll know who the master of the rezoning information is so they can have that one-stop shop, as well as we'll be divesting that right down to the building department in terms of the individual team members. So the file manager is supposed to use the resources before them and then after them in order to get the service delivery done. Where possible, we're going to have, for example, Gablecraft Southlands has the commons. That area of that development is all a series of then subdivisions followed by development permits. I intend to have a singular person, if possible, being our master of the commons lands. Subdivisions will then create 200 lots within it. There'll be a person that does a development permit on that, and then we'll follow right through to the engineering department into the actualization of that development permit. Carrie, I see she wants to add a little bit as well. Please, Carrie.
Hi, through the chair, this is Carrie speaking. I just wanted to add to what Brent is saying, and that part of our 2021 priorities is to streamline our development procedures. So part of this is to reflect what's happening behind the scenes with staff, file manager, and the various types of applications we're working on. So we're working very closely with the engineering team to figure out the best approach to improve our internal processes, which then are reflected outwards to the community, both the public and developers and yourselves.
And frankly, we'll translate directly into our software program when we end up kicking the ground of it. So what we're doing now is essentially setting the footfalls for tomorrow, so to speak.
Thank you. Very encouraging, the words you had there. Can I then get a motion on the successes and challenges and opportunities section of this? Councillor Logan. So moved. Any specific amendments or discussion? If not, any in opposition to that motion? Seeing none, how about moving on to council expectations? I think Mr. Earl had one little addition there on reporting back on development timeframes. Anybody got anything else or wish to make a motion? Councillor Baxter.
I just have two general ones to add. So I'll call them 14 and 15, since we've already got an additional one there, making it 13. So 14 would be, in every decision, to have in mind the climate emergency and how Colwood can help both mitigate and adapt to it. Do you want to have a discussion and vote on that one before we go on to the next one? They're kind of related.
Well, then give us both.
Okay, so the next one is always seek cost-effective solutions that are consistent with the rest of the expectations.
Okay, do you want to motivate?
Yeah, well, I noticed there was no mention of climate change in there, and although I think a lot of staff are very aware of it, I don't think it hurts to make it clear that one of our expectations is that where we can do something about it, we do something about it. And I think cost effectiveness is another thing that is useful to just have a reminder in there about.
Okay, with that, then you're making the motion with those additions, I believe. Is that correct?
That's right.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, any in opposition to that motion? That passes. Next, we'll move on to the priorities, 2021 priorities. And I don't know if anybody wants to try to condense this list or not. It's hard to consider a priority when it's got 15 items on it or something, but I will look for the will of council. Councillor Baxter.
I just want to say that's a lot of work, and I congratulate the team on doing so much of it already and taking on so much more in 2021. And I move the motion to approve it all.
Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, any in opposition? Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
How about, who wants to make a motion on maintain, increase, or decrease the development service level? And the service, and just for clarity, I'm going to suggest that to maintain would be the level that they have proposed they're going to do with filling the staff positions and what have you. So we'll consider that a given, and we'll look for a motion to go one way or the other. Councillor Kobayashi. You're muted, Doug.
I would like to make the motion to maintain under the assumption you just made right there. Thank you.
Any discussion on that? Because I lowered a bunch of hands, so if you wanted to speak, put your hand up again. If not, any in opposition? Then that passes as well. Great.
Thank you.
Well done there, Brent and team.
Thank you.
So next we'll move on to Development Works and Services area. What do we got? Engineering. We're on to engineering. Now if that doesn't perk everybody up, talk about engineering for a bit.
So,
Well,
through the
they're
chair,
changing teams. I was just going to suggest we take a quick bio break. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. You got it. How are we doing? I can't see if we got everybody back in the room or not. That's better. Just two young pups waiting to come back. Okay, I think we're good to go here. So who wants to introduce the engineering department?
Thank you very much, Councillor Parkinson. Through the chair yourself, I am pleased to introduce the engineering department. I'll start off in the similar manner to how I did with the development services by talking about our present makeup as well as our future. We've spent a fair bit of time mapping this out inside the last several months. Breaking it, then I'll talk about each service level and how I propose that we move through those. And then a brief overview as introduction to the department, what we touch, and very, very similar to development services in the introduction. So around us and in front of the camera today is the engineering team. At present, our makeup is 4 team members, plus a director, myself, manager, which is Trevor Auger, and an assistant. In our future, we do anticipate growth. We're looking to grow in regards to inspections. We're looking to grow in regards to capital project ability and support. And we're also looking to grow in terms of some engineering support level, meaning tech level 1s. We have been doing double duty through our assistant, Pat Taylor. As you heard me speak about with development services, Pat has been a shared asset in lieu of 2 individual aspects for that. And her support has been invaluable and fantastic. But as we move into 2021, we'll be looking to bring back that support role for 1 for each department and transition between all assistants that are available for using that. The responsibilities for the engineering department, once you start mapping it out into the service level reviews, are vast, and our lists are large in each of these sections. And so we will be looking at some feedback from council and committee as to how you wish to go through it. But we've broken it into 3 different areas for service level reviews. Development, works and services, and what that's intended to be is how we work with our development community, other aspects of the city, meaning building and development services, in delivering that product on the ground. So actualizing roads, infrastructure improvements, master plans, that sort of thing. Our next topic of discussion will be right-of-way use. So that's existing right-of-ways that are under present asset and control and the asset management of the systems within. And our 3rd service review that we table for you folks tonight or today is our GIS service review. In terms of each of those 3 aspects, we've identified challenges, which will be individualized as we go through. And after each aspect, we'll ask for council to lead us in terms of the expectations and discussions. But all aspects that we've seen so far are challenges similar to development services in regards to the sheer volume of work coming our way. It has increased during the COVID time. COVID on top of it as well. This department was responsible for portions of the risk management function of the EOC that was tabled at the staff level and implemented onto the ground. They're also responsible for remote coordination, as remote coordination isn't just a developer or architect, this is also with all the utility providers, as well as the design team, as well as the developer, as well as the potential builders on the ground. So this department touches a lot of different aspects. It reaches backwards, I'm going to say, into development services and reaches forward in terms of the building department. But it does coordinate in a manner that touches all the services of the city. And perhaps this department, similar to development services, reaches greater depth than any other aspect of the city. Public Works is vested into every one of our drawings reviews where they're looking at our parks infrastructure, our landscape infrastructure, and diving into the minutia of irrigation placement as we notice flaws in the ground from wheel tracking movements, problems during the built form, problems during the building stage, tree placement. So Public Works is an an integral part of our review process. Fire department for water service and delivery as it relates to the master planning for the community, as well as the individual building in terms of what's called fire underwriters water supply. Development services to the rules, the established, the procedures, and the factors that have been brought forward in terms of the rezoning, the development agreement, the development permit considerations, and how that's actualizing through the engineering department. Administration through the variance of reports and whatever considerations need to go forward to council. Finance at the intakes of fees, charges, servicing agreements, and the applications of the bylaws and procedures around those service charges. Long-range planning and community planning in regards to how this is mapping forward for what we heard discussed in the last time. The responsive application of delivery of works and services in regards to climate change, how we're factoring into our stormwater considerations, how site adaptive design and its major component of stormwater management is being integrated into the built form at the time of subdivision as it's translated through development services. And as well, delivering that end product to building so they understand not only what built form is there, but the conditions around it, the restrictions that are around it, the land use assumptions that have gone into it, and to comment on several comments from our earlier discussion, some of the specific and unique aspects, which may be in regards to lot retention, maximum heights of retaining walls, obstacles, or factors which bleed through all the various other aspects of the city and get realized on the ground through engineering. We at present have a combined file management strategy, so slightly different than development services where it's tip to tail service. The aspects of the engineering department as 4 people has been a static group for about the last 10 years. And as such, they have become experts in individual components of their systems. And so the team has used each other to be able to best manage a file moving forward. However, as we grow our team, we will be looking to integrate, and we've commenced it already, to be file chiefs is what I call it. So a person that was well integrated into in terms of the subdivision aspects of it and working with development services will also be responsible for the works and services necessary to realize that subdivision. So we'll be looking at chiefs and using our expertise that's already in-house to deliver that service. So we'll be moving towards, I'm going to say, an individual chief or individual growth pattern within the city. There is extensive and excessive coordination to enable the conceptual forms that are developed in development services to be actualized to the built form that you see working with the building department. So coordination through all aspects of the interior team, which is all of the service models of the city and all aspects of the function, all come to the ground here and translate out at the end to our GIS services function for where we hope to tighten down on, which in terms of our asset derivative is stretching forward from not just this year, but the asset intake through subdivision, which you heard development services speak to the integrated asset attainment of the pipe, the infrastructure, the road surface, and the life cycle amortization of that product as it goes through time. Financial and fiscal responsibility of that asset is part of our growth pattern as is moving forward, as well as the environmental aspects that have been tabled at our previous discussion. So I am very pleased to announce how this team has worked, managed these COVID times, as well as the intricacies of the file, and the growth and the essential maintenance of the service delivery that we've put forward. As we break into individual aspects of our service review, which we'll do one at a piece, you'll hear from each individual staff members. They'll start off by introducing themselves, and questions can be directed back at themselves or myself, and the best person will endeavor to answer it. So we'll be also taking cues from you and committee as to how you would like to be led or lead us through the various aspects. So I'm going to turn it over to Trevor Auger, our Manager of Engineering, to lead us through the development works and services overview. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Chair. Thank you, Brent. Trevor Auger speaking here, and I'm pleased to present an overview of engineering's function relating to the development works and services. Engineering staff review all proposed development works and services to ensure compliance with bylaws, agreements, policies, and procedures. Our service delivery includes receiving, reviewing, and approving detailed design submissions, oversight during construction, and eventual acceptance as a city asset. The engineering department works within existing rights of ways, which we consider frontage improvements, with building permits, works on the lands, including mass grading, hauling, and terraforming and retaining wall considerations, as well as works within future rights of ways as required to develop the lands. Again, these future works would include road, drain, sewer, electrical, lighting, irrigation, boulevards, and trees. Engineering also reviews detailed high-level studies such as traffic impact assessments, stormwater management plans, and sanitary sewer and storm drain design briefs. We also receive and process variance requests for council consideration, park and trail and open space areas, working closely with Public Works during the approval process, as well as handover for maintenance to the Public Works Department. We oversee utility coordination, whether that be with all other third-party utilities, BC Hydro, TELUS, Shaw, and Fortis. We look at tree consideration, working closely with the framework of the tree bylaw. We manage servicing agreements and bonding with the developers, financial services and invoicing to coordinate with the finance department, and the delivery of site adaptive design principles. Staff work closely with all aspects of the city, including Public Works, Development Services, Finance and Front Counter Services, and the delivery of the service. This function also has a strong connection to asset management service delivery. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Brent for council expectations.
So thank you very much, Trevor. In our last session with Development Services, we were almost led through the expectations. Through the chair, would you like me to work our way through it, or would you like to do it at the end once we carry on?
I think we could probably divert to a council discussion of the engineering function at this point. I think we will try to do it in three separate things: the engineering, the right of way, and the GIS, or else we'll just get hopelessly confused. So if there's anything you wanted to highlight before I go to council, Brent, feel free, but maybe.
Thank you very much, Chair Parkinson. I think one of the aspects that I'd like to highlight is, and it's only in top format, is a little bit what Trevor, Mr. Auger spoke about in his overview of this session, and also speak a little bit to some of the successes. As you've heard me speak about, this department has been quite static in terms of its staffing and its function, while continuing to process through this increasing challenging environment for more complex files. I'm pleased to announce that we've got some growth occurring in the next years. And I think that we can work towards delivering some of the council expectations in regards to capital projects and uptakes. So more than pleased as to be led through at Councillor Parkinson as to where you'd like to see us go, because we can have an individualized discussion on to challenging as in the opportunities, as well as some of the priorities if you see benefit to it.
Well, what does council feel? Are council ready to go here? I mean, presumably we've all read this. Do we have any comments here? Councillor Day.
Thank you. My comments are really about trying to increase, again, the cost recovery. So, you know, this no different than the previous one. We are still looking at about 20% of our costs being recovered, being that the funding that's contributed is about 221,000 and the overall administration costs 871,000. So I just would like to hear from staff, because it sounds like there are some needs that aren't being met in this department. How do we do that and increase our cost recovery?
Thank you very much. And through the chair, Councillor Day, if I've got the advantage of looking back through some of these things. So much to the same answer that what I had with the development services, portions of our fees are recoverable and portions of them aren't. We will be undertaking a review in 2021 of our right-of-way permit fees and our soil permit fees. Some of our works and services admin charges are encompassed in our right-of-way permit fees and also taken in at the time of subdivision. This year, finance and the team have worked through some GL mapping, which we found have been accurate. And so we're going to be using them to translate out into 2021 for a little bit better spectrum recovery. Items that we don't recover charges on is some of our complaints based that take time. But we do think that there is benefit to reviewing some of our recoverables in regards to soil permits, in regards to right-of-way permits, to better reflect the time actually invested in those permits. So I expect to see that coming in 2021.
So on those areas that you're targeting, I don't want to get too far down in the weeds, but those problematic areas where you're not getting kind of the return on investment of time, perhaps you are already considering some additional costs that are associated with, you know, for example, you know, a goal that a developer has that isn't met through the way that they do things. You know, they submit their plans and you needed them in a different format, or you know, what they've submitted is not complete enough for you to work with. Are you considering some sort of recovery of costs to do with those things that are within development's control?
That's a really interesting question, because it allows me to reflect forward onto some of our challenges and opportunities. I'd say in the last 5 years, we seem to see a decline of our external partners' services. Maybe it's through competitiveness in the external market, where more and more companies are becoming more and more competitive with each other. But typically what falls off the table is the amount of inspection services that they offer. And we see it directly translating to the qualities of the submissions. That's something that we've focused a tremendous amount of effort on in 2020. And you'll see it listed as one of our challenges and opportunities. It's bullet 4. Inconsistent submissions often lacking quality oversight prior to submission to the city. We are actively engaged with our engineering professional community to try and, we can't understand the scope of how they bid on a job or win a job and what they're cutting out or what they're taking away. But we can certainly be clear and focus on the city's expectations. And so what we're going to be working for as we work through our development servicing bylaw in 2021, 2022, is having a clear map of those expectations, having a clear map of the service delivery that we expect from our external providers, and working to improve the consistency of those submissions. Because quite frankly, it directly relates to our time invested. There has been projects where, you know, we've handled 80 homes in 3 drawing reviews and it's out the door. And there's another project where we've handled 1 new home with 7 drawing reviews because of the amount of time and the amount of effectiveness that either the project manager or the consulting team is putting into it. That's not an excuse for time, but it does speak to how we need to try to map these forward in terms of the time aspect relationship, because a component of fees is, as Councillor Baxter pointed out, a percentage of my time, a percentage of administration's time, a percentage of the tools like the systems and the phones that we use, and even the vehicles we drive. So mapping that out to be able to truly cost those factors as a percentage of the function of engineering is where we're looking to deliver. But all of the engineering functions are not in cost recovery mode. Asset management, project initiation, all of that factor aren't in cost recovery through fees. And so council will notice this year in part of the budget cycle, a specific attribute of capital projects relating directly to staffing. Estimated at 4%, that'll become a factor of every single consideration that's going forward for budget, which has not happened under my knowledge in previous years.
Jen Hepting here, Finance Management, just to weigh in on what Brent has been saying. As we start to fine tune these service plans and understanding the costs associated with each service area, we will improve upon the information that we provide where there are costs directly associated that are intended to be recovered through the fees the city collects, and those costs that are not intended to be recovered through the fees the city collects. What you're seeing before you, are the costs associated with each of these service areas in their entirety. And as Brent just mentioned, there are certain expenditures that we do not
intend to recover through fees. In addition to that, we have a few areas of fees charged for the organization where we are endeavoring to undertake a fee review in the coming year to ensure that we are recovering the costs related to those. So, you know, there's additional work to come, and you will start to see some of that information as we move into the 2021 budget deliberations.
Thank you.
If I can follow up on that, I just to that end, I have a question about the software that we're looking at.
Please.
That's all right. Thank you. So just just thinking about the example that you just gave, Brent, of, you know, sometimes they bring in a plan for 80 houses and away you go, you're off to the races. And another time you'll have one house being built and it takes 7 meetings to get it straightened out. So I'm just wondering if the software will have an impact on those types of issues whereby, you know, that meeting wouldn't be scheduled if you haven't met all the criteria.
Really interesting point. Yeah, the software will help it. One of the things that we've been, but not absolutely. So one of the things that we've been working on is how we communicate. And it's been a really interesting year with COVID thrown onto it. And that's one of the attributes that development services and engineering are well coupled together in providing. It's this next step. It's the clarity of the expectations. It's the clarity of roles and services and responsibilities. And also some of the attributes that came up in the development services as well is that end quality management in the field, boots on the ground. We need that from our engineering professionals outside of this office, and we need that from our engineering team inside this office. So one of the things that we've been doing, which will be helping with the software, is clearly identifying those hurdles. What submissions are missing? What submissions have come in? Not to be too specific, but it is a handy example to be specific on. The ONI works and services that are on Sooke Road. You've seen it undertaking a little portion of those works. 2 years ago, we took $7 million worth of bond for those works and services, of which you're seeing the first aspect of that happening this year. $7 million of work with only $1 million worth of it underway. The reason that that has been delayed is because we have not seen the electrical submission in that 2 years and have been chasing it with their consultant, with the developer. Every drawing review in that 2 years, 8 drawing reviews later, still chasing that electrical submission. It took feet on the ground, call in by all parties during COVID, massive dial in to say no further, guys. And by the way, we have an expectation at the start this year. So pulling together our external communities to help bring about our internal efficiencies will ultimately help our external efficiencies as well as our internal efficiencies, which will only be aided by that program and software. Coupled with up-to-date development servicing bylaw will only further streamline how we process and further outline to our community the expectations of deliverance. We hope that those 3 combined aspects, as well as an integral team desire to meet, to discuss, to get the best quality product with our partners as part of our mandates and moving forward for 2021 through the years to come.
Thank you.
Hurts again, right? Because they don't show the whole picture, right? And people are making some bad conclusions here. I mean, I clear at first, when I first saw this, I just went, this doesn't look good. But you know, it's you know, I don't know if you're going to be able to rattle off what you just rattled off for development services. No, right, exactly. But you know, there's inputs, outputs, right, that are controlled by engineering, and to be able to tie that to the budget, like it's going to be a lot easier to justify increases or decreases or whatever, right? That's the issue I have here. And I was trying to break it down because I looked at the 3. I mean, the budget, well, that wasn't one nice thing, is that the operating administration costs were all the same across all 3, which they should have been. And but trying to divide out like what portion is consuming the most. But to be able to have those metrics would be absolutely phenomenal. And that's, you know, I guess that's under expectations. And I'm just trying to help you along. That's what I'm trying to do, really, because I know there's a lot of good work, again, that's happening, but it's, you know, to quantify it a little bit would be helpful, you know, because these charts alone do not show the total picture. That's how I see it anyways. That's in my eyes. If you want to make a comment on that, Brent, thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Kobayashi, thank you for allowing me the grace to not be able to rattle off all those numbers again. I appreciate that very much, but your point is well taken. While I may be able to provide some numbers, what I'm hearing more is that this is another one of those areas that we can provide information to council. And in doing so, we're actually going to help understand our fee structure and that relationship as we move forward. This is directly tied to the benefit of the software that we're talking about in 2021. And I'm pleased to tie this into Councillor Day's previous question on what are we expecting from that software. This is one of those attributes, because it's not just about right-of-way activity through development, but actually all those individualized permits. So thanks very much for allowing me the grace to not rattle off those numbers, but also understanding that we expect to be able to do that, Councillor Kobayashi, as we move forward and integrate these systems. And we only hope to better perform as we move into 2021 and 2022. I don't think I'm going to be quite ready, being honest, like I was in development services for a midway 2021 uptake, because I'm going to be in the middle of this integration. But I certainly say we can speak towards it for 2022 and start doing a 6-month progression as considered at that point as well, once we get that system and software integrated. Thank you for that lead.
Okay,
oh, Jen also would like to add something.
Thank you.
Management, just to jump in, there are a number of tools that we will need to utilize to fine-tune the financial information as we return. One of those is enhancements to our timesheet software. The largest components of these operating budgets is typically our labor and benefits, and currently we don't cost that information out outside of public works, but for the rest of our service areas, it's all costed at the departmental level. And so again, it's just, I wanted to highlight that enhancing those tools we will be in a better position to fine tune the information that's before you, but that will take time. That is software in addition to the software that.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
So I don't see any hands here. If I could maybe jump in just for a minute, sympathize with your concerns about not getting complete packages when you should. And I think that does go back a little bit to Councillor Kobayashi's comments on the last subject about tracking timing. I mean, if, for instance, you're getting submissions from 4 or 5 separate consultants and 1 or 2 of them are notoriously taking a lot longer than others, there's only so many times they can point their finger and say, well, the city's doing it wrong. The market will notice, you know, who's getting the results in a timely manner. And then economics may determine who gets the projects after that. So be it. I was a little concerned, though, about you seem to be worried about the inspection in the field, both from the consultants and from your own staff. And obviously, as we're looking at sort of long-term asset management things, you know, a good inspection is directly related to length of life of the assets that we're dealing with. So how concerned are you with not getting proper inspection on the facilities that the city's taken over?
Well, thank you very much for that. I would say that it's through the strength of the partnerships that I actually don't have very much concerns. It's the compliance monitoring on the staff aspect that I would like to increase. So we have, from some of our big players, Olympic View right now, or Gablecraft, they've got a team out there looking at it. I'm not concerned at all with their compliance monitoring on those sort of things. What I'd like to do, though, is I'd like to work to strengthen the team's relationship to both the consultants and the contractors by creating opportunities and time to be in the field to physically watch. It's one of the things that used to exist in the engineering profession, you know, more than a decade ago, I suspect, where there was time to be able to look and know, field a question and get out there and get your boots on the ground, wander the site, and then come back and know that everything is going well. And now we're so thin that we rely more heavily on those professionals and providing that integrated services. We have established a really good pattern of checks and balances. We've got some great partners in this. We not only undertake sometimes weekly, bi-monthly, or at least monthly inspections where we get our field reports and reviews coming in. We've got a really good interactive do loop with most of our engineering teams and professionals out there. My comments are more relating to our ability to leave the office and go and compliance monitor their works to ensure what we're seeing is actually what's there. We have noticed in the past where we have to dig into our as-builts that sometimes there can be some errors that I'd like to make sure that we're preventing as we move forward into the future.
Thank you. Councillor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have talked a bit about staffing, again, along the same lines as the last discussion, but Brent, we have talked about augmenting your cadre there for specific capital projects, or specifically capital projects that council desires. Can you talk about staffing, what that looks like for the remainder of 2021, whether we're going to go out to tender for contracting out some of those services, whether we need to increase the cadre, and what have you, as we're entering into budget discussions soon enough?
Through the chair to Councillor Jensen, thanks very much for that lead in. Yes, this team insofar has been largely reactive, to use some of the words from the previous teams before, and wholly following the development services lead for delivery of services. With exception of several team members have been able to deliver products such as the Lookout Brook Dam, carry on with regular inspections, keep up with our bridge maintenance, do culvert inspections and repairs, as well as forecasting into our other aspects that we'll go into in terms of our right-of-way management and assets. However, though, we haven't been able to carve enough time to be able to deliver capital projects as perceived from council. And we can talk about that further when we go into the right-of-way and that asset management derivative. So right now in the market is a job posting for a capital. And that person is we're in the market. It'll close in about a week and a half, that job, and then hopefully go out for interviews before Christmas shutdown to be able to start up in early January as soon as possible with a new body for that. The intention for that body is that it's funded through some of those capital works deliveries. So we intend to be able to focus a whole aspect of the engineering department, not just on the delivery of our development needs, but in terms of delivery of what council expects in terms of the capital projects. So I'm pleased to say that that's underway, and we expect to be able to hit the ground running in 2021, well, shortly thereafter in 2021, let's say Q1, with the body and the budget to support that in this year's tranche from 2021 to 2025. The inspection services, we're also in the market right now for inspection and inspector, intending to be lower in the totem pole to be able to complement both GIS services in part, but also inspection services to be able to give some ground up training. We have also concluded interviews unsuccessfully for another inspector position that we will have to go to market again in short order. That one just regretfully concluded over the weekend in a non-positive manner. So this room hasn't heard that yet, but you are. I think that we're leading forward to good team capacity for delivery of capital projects, as well as the continuation of development services, as well as the influx of what we expect. We think that we'll be having a 30 to 40% increase through function and flow through development services based on the built form intent. An example of that would be to create that one lot, that is the commercial lot in Gablecraft South, involves the creation of 3 interior roads, the master plans of all the systems, and that's before we even create the property that is the museum site, which also involves 3 frontages, Machosen Road, 3 internal roads. So the work that Development Services is already undertaking will facilitate the next 8 months, or sorry, the work the services that engineering is undertaking will facilitate the next 8 months of development services flow.
You good there, Dean?
Thanks.
Okay, Mayor Martin.
Thank you. So I wanted to stay on Councillor Jansen's point. First of all, can you explain to me, when we get a budget, for example, the Painter Road sidewalk, is the Painter Road sidewalk capital project, those dollars, is engineering costs calculated and staffing costs calculated in that dollar amount?
So we will have an opportunity. So sorry, Mayor Martin, and through the chair. In regards to the specific area of service review right now, which is development works and services, there might be a greater opportunity to speak about that in our next service review category, which is the right of way. However, no, in the past, a component of the budget, so that budget first came forward in 2018, did not include a specific line item for staff. Yes, it is the intention as we move forward to 2021 to ensure the staffing component at 4% is factored into the construction management of that system. And so that's one of the factors that we've learned from 2020. When did I come? I came to the city in 2017. So we've been breaking that down and working it through. And now we're of the position to be able to tell you that, no, we need to more adequately budget for staff components.
Okay, so thank you. So I just want to be clear. So with what's in the engineering department right now, and when I look at 2021 priorities, I don't see any capital projects in that, and that's because you're telling me all the capital project priorities will be listed right away.
That's correct. This function, and to come back to Councillor Kobayashi's comment about the fees and how they represent the works, if you look at all the service areas that have been tabled by engineering today, the 3 different service areas, it's exactly the same fee structure. So this aspect of the engineering function, which is development works and services, is meant to be a fee recovery, or largely fee recovery, based upon a percent of above ground and below ground in regards to the developing lands. So Royal Bay South, even though the roads aren't in a right of way, pays fees and charges that is intended to cover these works and services. That will be part of the fee review that we undertake in 2021 as well. So this aspect of engineering. Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, so I want to interrupt because I don't want to talk about fees. I want to talk about the actual moving forward of capital projects. And so
that's in a different service review.
Yeah, so, and I want to be clear with that. So, but I'm looking at the right of way right now, and for example, I don't see sidewalks. So where does sidewalks get discussed?
I'd be more than happy to talk about that in terms of council priorities as either background in terms of 2021 or future in 2020 or future into 2021. It plays actively into our budget as proposed, which you haven't seen yet, which is coming out of this. So our 2021 budget, I intend to augment our 2020 budget, which was a 2020 to 24. It included the budget provisions for constructing in 2021, the Machosen Road sidewalk, as well as constructing in 2021, the Painter Road sidewalk. That will be reinforced through our budget discussions through 2021 to 25, and they both show up next year.
So Mayor Martin, I'm thinking that that discussion that you want to have and I want to have is going to fall under the right of way and asset management format next. And
okay,
I can't explain why, but I think that's what's expected. So let's not rock that boat.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So this is a final follow-up then under engineering. So under engineering, I just want to be very clear because I'm feeling like I'm being thick right now. Under engineering, we are not talking about how we are allocating staff time at all towards moving towards city capital projects that need to be built. That discussion will all be under right of way and asset management and not under engineering. I just want to be clear.
That's my understanding. Staff, are we all on that page, same page?
Thank you very much. Through the chair, this is Brent Molnar speaking. Yes and no. This is not the time that we're proposing budgets or specific items for council's consideration. However, it is the intention of the service reviews to understand as a council priority that in 2021 or some future years, that you would like to see sidewalks, for example, as part of the budget consideration moving forward. That I would receive as a service review where increased level of service is expected, and staff would more than happily receive that during the right-of-way discussion service review and would ensure that it was covered off in our budget coming forward for 2021 to 2025.
I'll make sure we have that discussion under asset and right-of-ways. So anything further on engineering? Or engineering, development, works and services, how are we doing? No general discussions. Let's get a few motions going. The successes, challenges, and opportunities sections. Anybody want to make a motion there? Councillor Logan. You're muted there, Councillor Logan.
No, I was making the motion that you're proposing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Any discussion on that? Councillor Day. Sorry, I was playing with buttons on the computer here, Gordy. Sorry.
No problem. I think that we should add to the challenges and opportunities the staffing that was discussed and the difficulty with filling those positions. I think it's both a challenge and an opportunity. You know, we have an opportunity to bring some new perspective in, and we have the challenge of finding the right perspective.
Very true. Okay. I suppose that's an amendment. Anybody got any concerns with that amendment? Any in opposition? Okay, let's go back to the main motion as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any in opposition? Bingo, got that one. Council expectations. Who wants to make that motion? Councillor Baxter.
I move the council expectations as stated, plus the same two additions I made last time.
Okay, people will remember those were about looking after cost effectiveness and climate change. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, any in opposition? Good to go. Priorities. Who wants to make a motion on that? Councillor Baxter.
Move them as stated.
Any discussion? Councillor Day.
Thank you. Just one to add here, because we talked about it quite a bit, and I wrote down about the labor and benefit costings software. I think that should be in our priorities because that's something we're talking about in all departments, trying to create better linkages to describe exactly what people are spending their time working on so that we can understand where more help is needed.
Okay. That would be an amendment again. Any discussion on the amendment? Any in opposition? Good to go. I would like to, and maybe it's a question before I do anything else, but under priorities, you don't have a priority to do the subdivision and development design standards, I don't believe, unless it's under a different name. And yet you do indicate that that's a challenge because they're, you know, almost as old as Michael. So what, am I missing something?
No, sorry, through the chair. No, that should be a priority. Oh, sorry, it is in 2021 priorities. Implement standard, no, that's next steps.
No, first one. Lead in the creation of the
development servicing bylaw. So we should have that already there.
So development services bylaw is the same as the subdivision development design standards?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Ahead of me as expected. Any more discussion? Any in opposition? That passes. And again, we're at the be it resolved that engineering works and service area be maintained, increased, or decreased. We've heard about the proposed increase. So with that, are we happy with the service level that will evolve based on the increased staffing that's proposed? Councillor Baxter,
Yes. So I move that.
maintain?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion?
Oh yeah, so that's maintained with the additional service.
Yes, who's ever muttering in the microphone, it is maintained with additional services, yes.
Oh, okay.
Any in opposition? Seeing none, that's passed. Okay. Get ready, Mayor Martin. We're going to talk about right-of-way use and asset management. Who wants to start this off there?
Thank you very much. Through the chair, Brent Molnar speaking again. Yes, good segue, Councillor Parkinson. This is about the right-of-way use and asset management. So the right-of-way in gross is our areas of the road that are existing and which contain all of our works and services. I would actually like to turn this discussion over to Helen Lockhart, who will be leading us through an overview of this aspect of our service reviews. Helen?
This is Helen Lockhart, Technical Supervisor Engineer. This aspect of the engineering services delivery is focused on the assets held by the city and managed by the city, buildings and new assets as created by capital works, development and subdivision as accepted by the city, as well as all functions within existing right-of-ways such as permitting. It is responsible for all assets contained within right-of-ways and beneath and atop road surfaces and the capital planning. This area of engineering also handles requests and concerns from the community and includes roads, the sanitary sewer system, storm drainage systems, dam management, BC Transit works, and the Esquimalt Lagoon Bridge. Utilities and residents also may have works in our right-of-ways, and to do any works, they require a right-of-way use permit. So staff prepare and keep up inventories of all components of our assets and works closely with GIS for digital record keeping and mapping. Public Works can do routine maintenance of our assets, but we do long-term plans for the life of assets as they age. And this can include studies by staff or consultants for condition and capacity assessments, and which may recommend upgrading or replacement or improvements to our services as directed by council. This area supports development services by determining whether we can service new developments with existing services, and if not, what improvements are needed. Staff work closely with all aspects of the city, including Public Works, in the delivery and management of the systems that we have. Now I'll turn this over to Trevor.
Thank you, Helen. Trevor speaking here through the chair. Basically, Helen's identified what specifics that we do deal with, and I'll break them down into roads, sanitary drain, and buildings. However, moving forward to that, I'll touch on the successes, and you have quite a list in front of you on those, and I'll highlight some of them that we've achieved in 2020. So the big one that we feel we've achieved is the Lookout Brook Dam upgrade, which we're working through substantial completion with the contractor there. We had a final inspection last week. The 98% of the works is done. There's some minor deficiencies on that project, but the massing of all the rock on the upstream and downstream slope of that dam is now complete with minor touch-ups. Through the roads aspect, the high level of coordination, like Helen had touched on, with Public Works is a success. We continue to work with them on a day-to-day basis through our drawing reviews as we take over assets to ensure they're aware of what the city's intaking each and every year. Rock face monitoring, we as Brent's alluded to before, we've engaged a consultant to start looking at our structures that are within road right-of-ways that we look to maintain, as well as touching on the larger projects such as the Veterans Memorial Parkway at Latoria, dual lane roundabout, the signalization of Veterans Memorial Parkway at the Allendale lands, and the construction of Allendale and Wildcat in and amongst that area. The pedestrian safety improvements, We worked on closely with ICBC this year to get a 1/3 funding achieved. We installed 3 pedestrian activated push button signals that run on solar, so they're not hardwired, which gives us the ability to move those around the city if we see the need to do so. Under sanitary and drain, again, another high level coordination with Public Works Department, the calibration of our stormwater model for master plan and update of a multi-year plan based on recommended improvements, engagement to update the sanitary master plan with KWL, sanitary capacity review, as well as video inspection program that we initiated this year to start looking at all our existing infrastructure in the Colwood Corners area, which we are finding we have our oldest infrastructure, to see the condition and come up with a plan moving forward on how to maintain and or replace that infrastructure there. Onwards to buildings, we commenced a review of building assets. We obtained a depreciation report of City Hall, Public Works, and the Emery Hall, as well as budget development of asset management inventory. And I will pass it back off to Brent.
Thanks very much, Trevor. So that was a relatively speedy review, and we are more than pleased to go into any aspect that committee would like to delve further into. But perhaps I'll suggest a pause there before we go into council expectations or reviewing some of the successes or challenges. Unless through the chair, you'd like to be led through maybe the challenges and opportunities, and then come back for open discussion. Up to you folks.
I think we're probably good to jump into open discussion at this point. And I see Mayor Martin has his hand up.
Thank you. Can we get a comment in regards to City Hall? Since we did a depreciation report and we did a review of our building assets, it's my understanding that City Hall, majority of the building is not earthquake proof. And I would like to understand what staff's vision of the long-term viability of this building is, and what are we doing short-term, long-term?
Through the chair, what an exciting question, Mayor Martin, that is. So we've done a little bit of learning, and I'm going to open up a part of this discussion to Mr. Earl, who doesn't know I'm going to lob it over his way until right now. So when we started looking at our built form assets at the beginning of, or at this commencement of our budget cycle last year, finance and the team in engineering started looking at the known information. It was because of our roof partial failure at the southwest component of the building. And we realized that we actually had zero information in regards to the asset. We didn't even know when our water, whatever the hot water tank was installed and needed to be replaced, let alone how the building was painted. And look at the back corner of the building had fallen down. So it was a dawn of reality as we were looking to first off deal with that, understand how far that went forward, and then acknowledge that we had no base information on which to translate our future costs for. So we've had to break down our asset in terms of where are we at in terms of the depreciation of the asset today, and hence we went out and asked for council consideration for the depreciation report. That, though, does not provide the information to answer your question, Mayor Martin. The depreciation report speaks to the life of the building as factored to 2043, 2048. We have that information in, and it deals with the minutia of when to apply paint, when to replace roofs, when to replace hot water systems, heating and cooling, and the HVAC system, which went into a larger view in 2019, 2020, with works undertaken this year in terms of our HVAC to ensure that our air quality was at the highest standard that we could possibly have. You start on peeling that into the building repair that we've got going on at that southwest quadrant, and that has caused us to ask, what is our life of our building? Not the depreciation of the specifics of the asset within the building, but what is the life of the building? That we have undertaken a mapping exercise this year, and I would say are early at it. And this is where the lob is to Mr. Earl, to hopefully be able to better formulate the end portion of this answer now I've formulated. Robert?
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Through to Mayor Martin. Good news is this asset has substantive life left in, and the work that we've done this year will map out into the future investments that will need to be made into the envelope and mechanical systems, and so that we can maximize that useful life. That said, however, as Council is aware, our continued our community continues to grow. And as it grows, at some point, we will reach the end of our ability to create any more capacity within the walls of City Hall, and we'll need to look at whether or not this building can or should be expanded and or a new facility needs to be built. That process will begin in earnest in 2021, and we will come back to council with options for either expansion of this facility as the community continues to grow and or a potential new facility if that's more cost-effective approach. As Mayor Martin has identified, the need to bring this building into modern code could be substantive, and choices about a new facility will be brought forward as an alternate.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a follow-up to Mr. Earl's comments, in regards to the building and its needing to be upgraded, are we creating any sort of liability for the city presently if a major catastrophe happened and we have been put on notice that the building is not earthquake proof?
The building meets code of the day when it was constructed and can still be safely and appropriately occupied. Should the city determine to build a new building, we would build a new building to modern codes with all of the changes with respect to seismic stability and environmental performance that have happened since this building was originally constructed. This building is safe to occupy today, and we will continue to maintain it in such a state.
Thank you.
I don't have any other hands up. And yet I'm sure somebody wants to talk about capital projects, don't they?
We're around muted, guys.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I just, in looking at the whole report, there is no mention of sidewalks in the report. So, and in reviewing our longer term agenda for later this evening, I've noticed that there continues to be that trend of things that we want to do being pushed off, usually a minimum, we think we'll get to them, but then they end up actually being got to maybe 6 months later than we think, which is okay, and a function of, trying hard to do everything. But at the same time, I don't think that the way that we're looking at this is contributing to our being able to accomplish things more quickly. So I guess I'm asking where in your priority list do sidewalks fit, and what can we do to improve our ability to get to them?
Thank you very much. And through the chair to Councillor Day, we have as listed as a success, it's under roads, at least 7 or 8 bullets down, closer to 10, sidewalk and cycle network design at Machosen Road at Painter. But as previously talked about, that's not the capitalization of that. That's just the design. So that was the success that was done under the design, and we will be ready for 2021. And so flipping to page 40 of 44, if our pages are all syncing up with your folks's, under 2021 plus priorities in the road section, starting with the 5th bullet down, you'll see Machosen Road, pedestrian realm improvements, and complete street construction. That's the implementation of that design, which includes a pedestrian way and bike lane. And then the bullet underneath it, 2021 Painter Road, again, pedestrian realm, but this one's a safe route to school with the same intent for construction of those sidewalk as well as the bike lane. And then at the bottom of that road section in the same priority category, 2021 plus priorities, 3 bullets up from the sanitary and drain section is prioritize neighborhood public realm improvements and planning. So this is our transit node connectability, our safe routes to school. And this, we are more than pleased to be working with long range planning, sustainability, community planning, who will be working with council and our consultant team to bring forward a pedestrian realm prioritization in Q1, Q2 of 2021. So what I believe council can expect, I believe because I'm writing it as we go, but what council should expect to see for our 2021 through 2025 budget cycle is an annualized costing. Would council like to construct half a kilometer of sidewalks? So in addition to the Metchosin Road and in addition to the Painter Road, which will be translated to 2021 budget as forecasted in last year's budget and reinforced in this year's budget, I will as well be asking, would council like to complement that by scheduling and budgeting for a half a kilometers of pedestrian realm improvements or street improvements, which would include the bikeways and sidewalks? Would they like a kilometer of that? So that way we can go through a prioritization with council after community planning has brought back the prioritized network in the first quarter of 2021. So in the budget cycle, it will be gross dollars, further refined in the first quarter of 2021 for refined dollars and translating out to a 5-year objective so that you can see it in your service reviews for all the subsequent years. So that would be 2021, 22 plus service years.
Thank you.
Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, again, I just want to make sure I'm really clear on this one item here under sanitary and drain, and that was the Latoria Creek environmental review. So is that actually now discussing Latoria Road widening and what we're going to do with the creek? And is that what that is then? I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yes, through the chair, to Councillor Kobayashi, we are looking at the Latoria Creek section as a method to actually balance and enhance the environment. It can be shown that that creek may have been dug. And although it now has environmental features, there may be a greater benefit to the environment by considering the best location for that, which may augment and allow for some road widening to happen. We're looking at that project in two aspects, and you're right to bring focus to it, Councillor Kobayashi, because this is the area to bring focus. The geotechnical constraints, which we're working with Thurber to be able to undertake, and we should be seeing some drilling in the road right of way, understanding those constraints this year, bleeding into next year. Also, the environmental is tying into the intersection, but translating down all the way to Metchosin Road. That's with WSP and working in concert with Patrick Lucy as well, so 2 environmental consultants. And yeah, we are looking at how to best realize that environmental benefit to the creek, which may be in relocating. And if it is in relocating, then it's to create the best environmental benefit for the ecology, the flow of that creek, as well as the environmental aspects of it. So quite exciting project. And yes, that is what you see listed under sanitary and drain in 2021. What you'll see in the budget cycle is this year's budget realized right in Q4. I'm literally dealing with it now as this week in today's. So it'll be right in Q4. That'll be spended right into the first part of Q1. And then what we've been working with the team to realize is a multi-year approach that we can go about, firstly, gaining the understanding, which is the purpose of these reviews, mapping that understanding into a civil constraints diagram, and then outlining with council those constraints into reality to how we can widen out that road in the 5 to 7 year tranche.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's great to actually see it now, and it still was a big concern. So I'm really glad to see it as an item now. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Martin.
Thank you. So going back, because we jumped into priorities there for a minute, and maybe I can hold off these questions. If you want to, actually, when I think about it, Chair, did you want to just talk about 2020 priorities, or can I go into 2021 priorities?
Oh, your boots there. It's just a general discussion on everything to start with.
All right. So my struggle with the 2021 priorities is I'm not sure if we're talking, first of all, I'm not sure of certain terms. So if I look at, for example, 2021 Metchosin Road pedestrian realm improvements and complete streets construction, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's special terminology from an engineering standpoint, or if that means that I actually get something built on Metchosin Road in 2021, or it's just that we're starting in 2021. And that's part of my struggle is also, for example, one below that or two below that, continued LED streetlight upgrades. Well, I'm not sure, like, I don't know what the metric I'm using to measure that success when we come back to it next year. Are we using that it's 100 streetlights that we upgraded, 10 streetlights that we upgraded? When we use these generality terms, what happens is it gets frustrating, at least from my standpoint, and I think it gets frustrating from a council standpoint, because we're thinking differently than what staff's talking about. So can you please clarify, especially in the 2021 priorities, when you talk about Metchosin Road, Painter Road, are we getting those completed? Or are we just starting them?
So thank you very much for that. And it's very helpful to hear where council thinks we're at, and I greatly appreciate the discussion. So I should say that anything on this list is open for this level of discussion if you'd like. Painter Road and Metchosin Road were first budgeted for in 2018. We blended that budget into 2019 and completed it this year. So the capitalization, the actual construction of those works will be subject to council's consideration in budget in 2021 through 2025. Council is aware as well that through the grant project that's being facilitated through community planning led by Rachel, that we've applied for a grant for one of those sidewalks as well. We started out with both, but one of them. So it'll be through the budget actualization process that we will be able to answer, yes, we are going to build that next year. So to go through some of the lingo, which I really appreciated as well, is complete streets construction. What that's intended to signify is the resolution of council to construct their works and services to that of the transportation master plan. As we outlined with council this year, there are 12 different road cross sections that council wish to bring focus on and wish to have greater concerted review on. And we're doing that through a general unpeeling of the transportation master plan and updating the transportation master plan, which you've seen myself with urban systems with in front of committee at either the transportation level, committee level, or council level. You've seen Ia Borhill as well work with urban systems on another aspect of that. And what we intend to do is continue to work on that. I worked with council with that in terms of the Veterans Memorial Parkway scoping exercise. We intend to be at council in early December or early January, again with urban systems, focusing again on Metchosin Road and translating our meeting results from just the other night, where we looked about the left turn components in terms of that complete streets visions for Metchosin Road. So the design that committee elected staff to go forward with in 2018 is at the point of design reality now. We are ready to budget for it. And it is that complete streets as outlined in the transportation master plan. If council through considerations in 2020 or Q1 of 2021 say, well, Brent, we'd like this changed to a 3-lane cross section. We are already working to realize our complete streets visions, allowing flexibility and adaptability in the future. What that means is that our sidewalks are being prioritized as close to property line as possible to allow flexibility of growth of the pavement system in between. The right of way that we're speaking of in this section here is not the road surface. It is everything that's contained from property boundary to property boundary. So it includes the trees in that road right of way, and they could be 400-year-old Doug firs or whatever is in that way, to the pedestrian realm improvements, to the boulevard and the landscaping and the features that are associated with that in terms of the green streets, boulevard concrete works or whatnot, right down to the curbing and drainage, the bike coordination implementation, plus the left turn components that we talked about Metchosin Road. So the complete streets vision is not engineering lingo. It is a reflection of the transportation master plan, and which was a complete streets mandate. So as we work forward to validate those cross sections with this council, road by road by road of those 12 cross sections, of which Veterans Memorial Parkway is done, Allendale's done. We have the south component of Veterans Memorial Parkway to validate. So I should say not Veterans Memorial Parkway is not done, but the portion north of Cairndale is. We've got the south portion still to do. Wishart, we tested out with our left turns the other night, and we'll be coming back in Q1 with urban systems. And we're just going to peck these roads off one at a time as we go through it to make sure that this council, is mapping that complete streets vision and then can outline through staff through the gross budgeting intent of 0.5 kilometer or 1 kilometer per year and we'll come forward and work with the prioritization plan that'll come forward in 2021 and be able to implement that. So you will see this change after Q1 of next year into next year's being specific light items for specific budget items for specific works, including staff components, design components, and asset management.
Okay, thank you. So Chair, if I can just ask one final question. Looking on page 40 of 44, can you please look and tell me what is lying in the 2021 projects that will actually be physically done that the general public will look at and go, that has been completed?
I hope you're asking Mr. Molnar, not me, Mayor Martin.
I'm asking anybody who wishes to answer.
Well, I don't mind answering that. So this year, at the end of the year, we undertook our first segment. I can go through line by line. We undertook our...
No. I'm not looking line by line. I'm just looking at, I just want to be able to point to something to the general public and say, we completed X. Please just tell me what are the X's that we're completing in 2021.
So I don't want to go big scale, you should see Veterans Memorial Parkway widened and the Allendale intersection built. You should see Veterans Memorial Parkway at Allendale or at Latoria at 70%, some component of build. Both of those total out to about $6 million. You'll see about $100,000 worth of signage physical on the road, which will tie together all that CNIC, whatever the abbreviation from our community wayfinding peoples are, implemented and realized. And not only that, but the first quadrant undertaken and the second quadrant underway by the end of that year. You will see, well, the LED streetlights are harder to see, but you'll see them. Rock face, it's hard to see, but we can report on it. You'll see the bridge down at the lagoon on our next tranche of scheduled works as outlined by McElhaney. But in terms of the big stuff, if council elects to keep it in budget, you should see the Machosen Road sidewalk, or you should see the Painter Road sidewalk. I don't think council can retract the budget for the Allendale Works or Veterans Memorial Parkway, but you'll see that done being finished as well. So I'm excited to say that some of these are soft and some of these are subtle, but they make a big impact. And although I may have brushed through the LED streetlights, and yeah, it's true, the committees or the public's not going to really see, hopefully all things go, that there's been a change. But our energy and emissions will directly speak to it in future years. Our community wayfinding objectives in terms of linking neighborhoods to our cores, to our trails and activity systems are part of our signage upgrade. And what we're doing is actually bringing about a facelift for areas of council. And so you're right, people may not see it, but it may generally change the attitude of some of our public who feels that they're not seeing anything. And it'll change how our community is passed through and driven by, because it starts to bring attention to those integral services that are already there. And although soft, I think that over increments of time, you will see even those minor ones, such as the LED and the signage upgrades, or at least I hope that you will.
You okay there, Mayor? Okay. Councillor Day.
Thank you. Just a little trigger for me when you talked about the complete streets and whatever's in the right of way. A lot of these projects, I don't think the public or maybe even council have a really good idea of what it's going to look like when we're done. And I'm just wondering about those choice elements. You know, there are going to be places where you run into trees that are of significance to the community that are in conflict with other services, and there's going to be some choices made around those. Can you just kind of illuminate for us where the community and council are going to get these big bright pictures from that let us make those decisions, maybe not easily, but with surety?
Thank you very much. Through the chair to Councillor Day, those sort of decisions are part of every 5 minutes of every day. Staff continually have to evaluate the situations, and you may have heard about it through some of the variance applications that have come forward. I even heard a developer speak about it. We believe that we received the direction from council through the adoption of the Transportation Master Plan and the creation of a bylaw with their support. Once that's done, we believe that council divests to staff the ability to make that reality a factor. So we understand in terms of some of the priorities of council is that we do create complete streets, that they do stitch together and they provide accessibility for all ranges of accessible users, and that they actually provide that linkage. The physicality of that sidewalk being located against a property line or against a curb is always part of the factor of consideration of staff trying to realize it. For example, if we were going to build a sidewalk down Kelly Road, for example, I would come forward to council and say, with this project, are we aware of the significant impact to Kelly Road that this would do? Because part of that complete streets would unfortunately cause a lot of root damage to the trees. It's what we need to do in some cases to enable the road cross section that enables the geometrics that are envisioned through council, the complete streets, or is worked through with our consultant and professional community. So the choices of left, right, center, keep, retain, or not are, as I say, part of all the factors of considerations. Council's outlined to us through our policies and procedures and transportation master plan that it wishes to see connectivity that provides accessibility to all. They've shown what dimension that they would like to be at, and they've showed how that mirrors into the boulevard areas. To be able to give and take from that does not detract from the ability to deliver that complete streets visions. And so the direction received should enable staff to do the job. However, if council would like to go and say, before you go out to tender on this, my desk is always open to pop in and have a view of it. And the public, where they're infinitesimally involved, is involved in some of the aspects of design. Yep, sometimes in 2020, we realized it's just too late. We madly worked to meander sidewalk around a beautiful arbutus tree to only have it peppered with complaints that never ceased for 2 weeks about taking down the arbutus tree when we worked to build a sidewalk around it. So choices can be made and choices can be made in error, but we work to try and do it as best as possible with the highest deliverance of efficiencies, cost effectiveness, and environmental stewardship that we believe the council is desirous of. We're always willing to have it remapped as well through council and are more than welcoming your input on the subject.
Chair Parkinson?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr.
Administration, relative to this last comment, administration could add publicly communicate capital project designs to the list of council expectations.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You good with that, Cynthia?
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, I think we're going to get into the motions here. Just a second. I just have a couple of questions now. When we talk about the study on sidewalks and cycling lanes, etc., when do we expect that to be completed?
Thank you very much. Through the chair, this is one of those, I'm going to be quick on this answer. So we're stitching together the transit priority routes, some of our existing nodes that have already got partial sidewalks and trail connectivities. And Helen is working closely with community planning, formerly long range planning services, to deliver this product. I believe it to be Q1. Stand to be corrected though, Mr. Earl.
So council may see a first draft of this in the last quarter of 2020, if not very early in the first month of 2021, such that early projects identified could move immediately to design for a possible 2022 construction. As council has been made aware through this conversation, there are sidewalk and bike lane projects that will be constructed in 2021, and administration will endeavor to give council that same opportunity for 2022.
Thank you very much. Does that need to be added anywhere, or is that we can just count on that happening?
That's our current trajectory.
Fantastic. All right, then let's get into motions here, people. First, what do we want to do on the successes, challenges, and opportunities sections of this report? Councillor Baxter. You're mute, Michael. Hold the Michael.
Mute as presented. No, move as presented.
Very good. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, any in opposition? Thank you very much. That's passed. Council expectations. Councillor Baxter again.
You know what I'm going to say? Move with the addition of the two items that I added with the other previous ones.
Thank you. Now, there were a number of other hands there that people wish to discuss. So I would like to say that in this section where we talk that inflow and infiltration be managed, I'd like to ramp that up a little bit, maybe managed exceptionally well or something. I just think that's it's just a waste to have too much inflow and infiltration in a system. So I would think that should be a little higher on the to-do list. I don't know if I can make that amendment as the chair, but I'm sure I could talk somebody into making that amendment, couldn't I? Apparently not. Oh, there we go.
Well, okay.
Councillor Kobayashi. Okay, now we have the amendment on the table. Councillor Day.
Sorry, I also wanted to just ensure that the CAO's note about adding to the council expectations that they would bring back the plans for public and council information. That was about the choices that are being made.
Yeah. Yes. So I think I'm going to deal with one amendment and then we'll get to yours, if I may, Councillor Day.
Thank you.
So the amendment to make sure that inflow and infiltration is managed exceptionally well. Have a mover on that, Councillor Kobayashi. Any discussion on that particular point? Seeing none, any in opposition?
Well, I have my hand up.
Oh, so I lowered all hands. I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Go ahead, Michael.
I want to suggest alternative wording.
Probably a good idea.
Managed with a view to elimination to the extent practical.
Much better wording. Oh, frig. So that's probably an amendment to the amendment, is it? Okay, it is. Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Any opposition? None. Any discussion on the amended amendment? Seeing none. Any opposition? Good. So the motion is now amended. And Cynthia, you want to amend it once more, please?
Thank you. I just want to add that staff will bring back, I don't have good wording, but we'll bring back plans so that council and the community understands what's being proposed.
Gotcha. That's close enough for me. Any discussion on that amendment? Any opposition to the amendment? Okay, and the main motion as amended twice. Any discussion? Any in opposition? We're done. Priorities. Any, who wants to make a motion on priorities? Councillor Baxter.
Move as stated.
Okay, I lowered all hands. If anybody wishes to discuss, please raise a hand again. Councillor Kobayashi. Yes, Councillor Mr. Earl.
Administration doesn't have the words at the table now, but between now and when you see the next draft of this document, we will get better words than continue with respect to the LED streetlight and the paving program, and we will get more precise metrics.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to staff, I just want to make sure that I understand this. I understand what the priorities are. So are you asking for more people to do this now? Because there's a lot of stuff to be done here. Wow. It's, you know, that's $1 million question, because then we're going on to maintain, increase, and decrease. So I just want to make sure I clearly understand this. Thank you.
Chair Parkinson?
Yes, Mr. Earl.
As has been discussed with previous areas, Mr. Molnar indicated there are 3 positions that we're actively recruiting for. And so move to maintain would include those 3 positions that did not exist in 2020.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That clarifies that. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
Okay. So back to the priorities. Any further discussion on 2021 priorities? Councillor Day.
Thank you. I'm just concerned because there was some further discussion. I'm looking at page 40. We talked quite a bit about the implementation of pedestrian realm improvements and complete streets. But we also talked about the Latoria Creek environmental review, and there was more information. And I would just think that that environmental review maybe should have the words added to it to increase the environmental functioning of the creek, because that's what I heard from staff. We're not just reviewing it, we're reviewing it with a goal of increasing its functionality.
Okay. Any discussion on that proposed amendment? Just before I call a vote, staff, are you okay? I mean, I guess I worry that we don't want to decrease the environmental values of that creek, but if it comes to a big ticket item to increase the environmental values, we'd probably be happy with maintaining them. So I'm a little concerned about you know, the positioning there. I'm not, you know, if it's easy to increase the environmental value of that creek, I'm all for it, but I'm not sure what might be involved. Any thoughts, staff?
Thank you, Chair Parkinson. Administration takes the perspective from the official community plan that we are constantly endeavoring to improve our ecological and environmental performance. Notwithstanding that, when there are substantive cost implications that go on identified budgets, we would bring that to council's attention. But we are under the impression that in every instance, you are desirous to see improved environmental and ecological performance where possible.
Okay. Very good. In that case, any discussion to Cynthia's amendment? Councillor Day's amendment? Any in opposition? On the main motion as amended. Oops, hang on. Sorry, Councillor Jansen, go ahead.
I was in opposition to the wording of the amended motion.
Duly noted. Councillor, that's Councillor Jansen again. Any other question? So did we pass the main motion? Sorry.
No, I do not believe you did.
Thank you very much. Okay, the main motion as amended. Any in opposition? I'll slow down a little bit here. Okay, seeing none, I declare that passed. Now we're on to the maintained, increased, decreased, and we have it in 3 sections. First on the roads, that be resolved that, well, it says that the communication service area, but I think it means that the road service area be maintained, increased, or decreased.
Chair Parkinson?
Yes, Mr. Earl.
Administration will improve it in the next version, but for everyone's clarity, road here includes sidewalks, boulevards, bike lanes, any infrastructure that's in the right of way that is not sanitary or drain.
Perfect, thank you. And we'll take the position as we have before that maintained means maintained with the increased staffing that's been discussed here. So, Councillor Kobayashi. You're muted. You pulled the mic on us, Councillor Kobayashi.
He's my hero. I would like to make the motion under roads to maintain.
Thank you. Now I lowered all hands, so any discussion, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand again. And I'll go slow here this time. Okay, seeing no hands, the motion, oops, hang on, seeing a hand. Councillor Day.
Sorry, I just had to clarify, when we're saying that it's being maintained with through three positions that have been contemplated being added, I think we're believing that we're going to be increasing the capacity of our roads, both for cyclists, pedestrians, cars, transit, but that so I'm just having a great deal of difficulty with saying that it's being maintained when we're taking as a given that we're increasing the number of people who are able to provide these services. So, and I think we're trying to increase the number of sidewalks, for example, cycle lanes, whatever that we have. So I just find that that's a very odd thing to be maintaining it while we're increasing staff, we're increasing the amount of infrastructure, but we're calling that maintaining.
I hear you completely. It's hard to probably pick the exact correct way. That's why I want to make clear that maintaining is maintaining the service level, which is how hard people are working at it basically, but with the already proposed people. So it could be sliced and diced a number of ways. I just want to try and make sure that it's clear. We all understand what we're voting on and what we're saying. And I recognize that it could be worded better. But having said that, any further discussion? Any in opposition? Seeing none, that passes. So next, that it be resolved that the sewer and drain service area be maintained, increased, or decreased. Councillor Jansen.
I'll move that we maintain the current service.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, any in opposition? Declare that one passed. Next, we're on to buildings. That it be resolved that the buildings service area be maintained, increased, or decreased. Councillor Logan.
I move that we maintain, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, any in opposition? Seeing none, I'll declare that passed. Whoa, getting close, people, getting close. We good to press on?
Yes, good to press
Okay.
on.
So the GIS service area, can I ask somebody to introduce this? And, I'm going to ask for them to start with just a good definition of GIS for all of us and then carry on from there.
So sorry if you heard me laugh there. It's because I'm going to do the general introduction, but I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to ask Rhonda to provide that brief definition for you. So I would like to please introduce this service area by introducing Rhonda. Rhonda is as a key member of our engineering team. Rhonda Schwab is also managing our GIS. She has been aggressively worked at in terms of looking at where we're starting, looking at where we're going, working with myself and other team providers to bring about choices. And I'm more than pleased to table it over to Rhonda to commence this discussion with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Yes, this is Rhonda, and I am happy to give you an overview of the GIS, and I find it very exciting, and I hope you find it as exciting as I do. The GIS technology allows for presentation of data regarding property information and assets of the city, and it allows for the querying and analysis of this data. The GIS system also is used to support decision-making within the city of Colwood, as well as sharing information with both staff and public. GIS works to display data through interactive mapping applications, web pages, and data sheets for both the public and the staff, and it helps support our asset information. GIS is further responsible for administrating and creating civic addressing. We work with our street and park naming groups. GIS helps users with general data visualization and is service focused, and it supports all departments. And as you can see in front of you, there is a financial overview and a council expectations, which I think Brent will speak on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Rhonda. Turning it back over to Councillor Parkinson as the chair. more than happy to answer any questions that you've got. And from there, we'll just let the conversation carry on if you're okay with that.
Okay. Anybody got any comments on the GIS service area? Also, I asked for an explanation, so at least we know what we were talking about or not talking about.
I don't mind, through the chair, I don't mind giving a little bit of that. Thank you, Rhonda, for stepping it up. So GIS is just to add to what Rhonda said before, and I can lead us through some of the council expectation and Chair Parkinson, just to get the conversation started. GIS has moved over the course of probably time, where it used to be just an internal function available to the city. So staff look at GIS as a mapping interface that shows spatial relationship of portions of our system. They can include assets such as signage and streetlights and road surface, and they've morphed from just a visual representation to an actual database of knowledge where it's got X, Y, and Z coordinates, so it's held spatially. It moves into holding information about depth of inverts or directions of flows and capacities and sizes, to times that it was installed, times that it was repaired, and times that it was maintained. So GIS, in terms of a staff function, has grown quite a bit because it's no longer that visual representation, but is now that asset management tool that is being used to move forward. Publicly, though, it's taken on another aspect. And we've all experienced this when we go onto a person's web page and we go, where are the construction activities? Where are the paving programs? Wonder what's in front of my house in regards to that sign, street, or sewer if it's available. All those questions as well are served by that function of GIS. So we're actually looking at it in two sort of forms. How can we represent the assets of the city in a spatial relationship that's diagrammatic, that can be represented both spatially in terms of a diagram, a map so we understand where it is, and then also can output data in regards to it. So it can be reviewed spatially, map orientation, or text-wise in terms of formulated thing. This thing was, this is that was installed then, needs to be replaced then. And we're looking at it to first off perform that function, but also to tie into our land management software. So it's got relationship of development over time. It's got the as-built information on a quick and handy layer. It essentially is going to be the call before you dig layer. And we intend to make that accessible to the public. Further than providing that call before you dig function, what's in front of my house before I put that fence post in the ground sort of thing, is that function of tomorrow. Can we start to represent where all of our construction activity is over the course of the system? Can we use this with our Bluetooth technology and data collection systems in terms of our roads to be able to forecast where road volumes are exceeding, where we've got construction activities that are coalescing onto each other? How can we share information with our public in a visual representation that not only holds an image, but actually has data? This construction is going to go on from 8 till 9 today, or information on those lines. We're at the very infancy of this. And we've been using the CRD database for a number of years and working as a collective agreement to deliver that service. And over the delving that Rhonda and I've done over the last year, we've actually found that the service isn't being provided in the manner that best serves our growth or the future scope of Colwood. Not only do we wish this system to hold that spatial data and speak to our land management software, but we wish it to be able to directly relate to the asset management systems and tie all those components together so that council at any time can say, can you give us a historical history on those assets? Or how about those assets within 300 meters of this point? That sort of information, and going straight simply to say, how can we assist development services with that 80-meter notification radius from a certain property boundary? So GIS is more than just a map. It's that spatial integration. So the expectations that I've written there, or that we've written there, Rhonda and the team have written there, is built around those 4 objectives. And I don't know what page I'm referencing now in your agenda, but I'm one of them, 44. So the expectations that we've mapped forward is ultimately that it's to serve the internal needs of the city, but also that it should be optimized to serve the external needs of the city. That we develop this system in regards to its ability to assist in our asset management. And that's, we support the open data approach. And what that means is that we can be that resource to share information. We share with our partners. We actually put out information to the CRD. We deal with our finance authority in assessment and working through the governance and the Prospero programs of the land management system. That our map represents the interests of Colwood. Staff, council, and external. I wish I could tell you that, yep, you'll have that within 6 months. But what I've really outlined there is a multi-year approach. And we're going to keep going with our CRD integrated system until we can have our system up such that it's replicating it. And then we'll work to close out the relationship with CRD in regards to the GIS and further our relationship with Esri and further our resources in-house, which you can see partly represented in the financial overview section on page 43. So I appreciate the question at the start to what is this? And I hope that you found and I hope that you found that the answer is a little bit like the US military. We can be all that you want to be. But I'd like to have a little bit of grace. Sorry for that poor reference there. But I hope for a little bit of grace because we are unfolding this, and we wish to unfold it in concert with our land management software because they do work parallel. And I think we've got a bit of a road to discovery in terms of how we'll unfold it, both in staff, in terms of what we know and don't know, and in terms of those additional facilities that we're wanting to see to best serve our community over the course of time. So where we're starting with is building as gross of a framework as possible to capture our flexibility and desires tomorrow. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you very much, Brent. Mayor Martin?
Thank you. Two questions that I have specifically in regards to financial overview. The one I'm sure is an easy answer for someone to give me, but the actual 2019, the soil permit fees was $168,000, which seems extraordinary. I'm just curious what that is. But more what I'm interested in is our expenses and the fact that we are now budgeting in 2021, $43,000 for salaries, and in 2022, $89,000 of salaries. So we're seeing an increase in this budget line item from $29,000 this year to $143,000. When I go back to the other things that we've talked about today, and I'm just going to use these one-liners, under development services, 2021, we see an increase of about $200,000 from 2019 actuals. When we talk about engineering, we're moving from 649,000 to 873,000. So we're seeing about a $200,000 increase there. Under engineering administration, we're seeing from 649 to 871, which again is over 200,000. And then I'm seeing an 89,000. So basically rounding up to $100,000 of additional staffing costs for GIS. I don't know if those numbers add on to each other or if they're cross-referenced, that's not really true, that I wouldn't add development services plus engineering plus GIC plus when it comes to salaries. But right now, it seems as though this department or these subject lines, I'm looking at close to, over $500,000 of increased labor costs. So could you comment on that, please, Steph?
Absolutely. Through the chair, to answer your question, Mayor Martin, Jen Hepting here. So as I've mentioned, for the majority of these service areas, so engineering in particular, what's before you today, 3 distinct service areas. This is the first time we're looking at these areas as such. And so you are seeing a duplication of financial information for each of those areas. With respect to the current budget and our current financial plan, we did receive council endorsement for increased funding for purposes of enhancing GIS services starting in 2021. And that was a partial year increase, and then we'll recognize the full impact of that funding into 2022. As you've heard today, there are a number of other areas where we will be resourcing for those areas, and the budget implications of such will be presented for consideration in the upcoming budget deliberations. That is not the intention of today's exercise with reviewing these service areas.
Well,
and
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I guess just what I want to say respectfully is that I'm struggling with understanding my labor costs and understanding of how much I'm increasing my labor costs when I'm talking about right-of-way use, development costs, engineering costs, and GIS costs. I don't see a corresponding decrease anywhere as I reference these. So I'm just trying to understand. It's fine enough for us today to resolve that the GIS services be maintained, but to be honest, if I'm voting on that, I'm basically saying that I'm moving from $29,000 of expenditures to $143,000 just to maintain. So that there's a bit of there seems to be. I'm struggling with this process to understand on how I cross-reference.
So, Robert here, through Chair Parkinson to Mayor Martin. And again, administration included the overall budget for engineering in each of these three sections. We have not yet split the engineering budget across these three sections, and we will endeavor to do that. This is the first year we're trying to marry together our budget process and our service review, and our systems don't allow the attribution of those expenses appropriately yet, and we will get there. As Ms. Hepting indicated, Council had previously approved an increase in the service area of GIS at the last budget cycle. So we've tried to reflect that here, but absolutely, we've left Council in a very difficult position in terms of trying to interpret the financial data in this document. Because we've just repeated it without slicing it up. We will endeavor to appropriately attribute this the next time you see it, such that you can understand those labor costs as they change over time.
Mr. Earl, if I may add to that. So thank you very much for that, because it spoke to that central section. Mayor Martin, you've specifically asked about some of our increase, and as you've heard Mrs. Hempting as well as Mr. Earl outline that it was previously forecasted. And that's in specific regard to the 43.4 and the 89 over 2021 and 2022. This is something that actually we've spent a fair bit of time as staff talking about. And I don't mind admitting that those are stabs at the dark. We have to get slightly farther in our GIS reality to understand how we can complement. First off, if we need to complement the service and where that complement is best realized. I know they're showing as budget line items, and they have been noted in our service review or in terms of our budget from last year's budget. In terms of 2021 in reality, am I planning on bringing somebody in the 7th month or July to augment the GIS services? Well, only if it's deemed necessary to be able to best meet the expectations of what we're looking to accomplish by the end of 2021 and 2022. So I see those items as shifting over, but I do see that budget as being able to reach outside if necessary for consulting dollars to be able to gain assistance to accelerate us to the next step as necessary. And I think that we will evolve that staffing component over time, if I may. And Jen?
In addition to what Brent's just mentioned, in an effort to add context, the financial plan for each service area does outline a staff position, history, and forecast. And that also provides additional information of the intended spend. So where there is an intention for the resources for a given service area to be reflected in the staffing composition versus an external spend. And so again, that is coming forward as part of budget deliberations, coming out of this year's service plan introduction.
Thank you.
I'm done, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Martin. Now, yeah, I think the confusing part is that the table, the gross table that shows the 649 to 871 is in there about 3 times. So one has to be careful about adding those up. And some of the stuff we've seen, and we get final say at budget time. So there's still some opportunities to tweak if necessary. Councillor Day.
Thank you. Couple of questions and a point to make on the council expectations. So under successes, it says Esri implementation. I don't know what Esri is.
Rhonda?
Esri is the software we use to implement our GIS maps through the city.
Okay, great, thank you. And then in the council expectations, it says the last bullet is to support the open data approach. Now, when this was talked about, we were talking about being able to provide information back and forth with the CRD and BC assessment. That's more of a departmental goal rather than, I think, a council expectation. So I'm just trying to translate this into what part of the GIS is going to lead towards goals that council has. I certainly think that we do want, all of our departments being able to talk to each other. And we do want to, we have a real focus on asset management. But I just don't quite understand the open data part yet.
Thank you, Chair Parkinson, through to Councillor Day. We're trying to establish whether or not council would support an open data approach by way of expectation. An open data approach would be wherever possible, we will provide the public with access to the data sources. And so where we need to protect the municipality or protect privacy, we would do such. But in every instance, as we build our system, if we can provide the public with as much information as possible so they can help make their decisions, we will endeavor to do so if we're using an open data approach.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor Baxter.
I think because I'm the oldest person on council, I get to tell stories about history. Over 30 years ago, I went to the city of Burnaby to see the very first GIS system in BC. And boy, I'm really glad that we're doing this now 30 years plus later, because it's a fraction of the cost of the very first one, and they are so much better. And by the way, I completely support open data. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Kobayashi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question through you to staff right now. I'm like a light bulb, you have to hit that on and off switch a few times before it actually stays on here. So my question here to staff is, and maybe you told us this before, but I don't kind of recall this. So what if we didn't have it? What would the cost be to us if we didn't have this? I guess I'm trying to make an argument here right now for you. So could someone answer that question?
You got me a little through the chair to count.
I'll take a stab at it. As someone who loves spreadsheets, it would work perfectly in my world. But a lot of people endeavor to consume information geographically. It's much easier to consume a sidewalk map if you can look at a map. And then if you can click on that map and understand when that sidewalk was installed and what's its width and when the last time it was inspected. And so geographic systems are much more intuitive for every user to use. And that's why I think the Windows system of computers was substantially better than the DOS.
Good analogy.
Well, so to add to Mr. Earls, just because I'm noticing, Councillor Kobayashi, that you're, same with me, stuck for words on that one. No, that was brilliant. We also hope to be able to have some really exciting interfaces here that help engage with the community. And it may not sound exciting, but just imagine right now, you've heard Public Works talk about the complaint system. You've heard engineering talk about the complaint system is through iCompass. Somebody phones in, they can enter something in or not. Imagine if there was something on your phone that said report pothole. And that geospatial, I'm here on this road, here I am, was sent to the city of Colwood, just like that. We would be able to meet our performance objective. Now, this is a ways off, but that's where we're going. We'd be able to meet that performance objective with that complaint coming in and actually be able to say, yeah, well, 6 hours later it was fixed, 12 hours later it was fixed, whatever we outlined. And that's kind of where we're going to go with this. This street light is burnt out. You know, I mean, it sounds minutia, tripping hazard on this sidewalk. And the public may look at it as minutia, but they're all attributes of the asset for us. And so I hope that helps round that out for you.
Okay, no, thank you. I just don't, I hate us going into circular arguments, right? So I was just trying to help this move along, facilitate an answer. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no more hands, let's get some motions going here. Who wants to move the successes, challenges, and opportunities? Councillor Jansen. So moved. Any discussion? I lowered hands, so if anybody had a hand up, you'll have to let me know again. Any in opposition? Done. So who wants to move council expectations? Councillor Kobayashi. And once again, I've lowered all hands. If anybody wishes to discuss, please raise a hand. Seeing none, any in opposition to the main motion? Seeing none, that passes. Priorities. Who wants to move priorities? Councillor Day. And again, I've lowered all hands. If you wish to discuss, please raise a hand. Seeing none, any in opposition to the motion? Seeing none, that passes. Who wants to resolve that the GIS service area be maintained, increased, or decreased? Councillor Day.
Thank you. I think actually it should be increased.
Over what's proposed here?
Well, with what's proposed here, but looking forward to moving this up faster rather than slower.
Any discussion on that motion? Okay, so the motion is that be it resolved that GIS service area be increased. Any in opposition to that motion? I have Councillor Kobayashi, Councillor Martin, Councillor Baxter, and myself in opposition. Anybody want to make a different motion? Councillor Kobayashi. You're muted.
I would like to make the motion that it be maintained.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, any in opposition? That passes. And I think that's it, folks. That's all she wrote. I don't have my adjourner. Somebody want to move adjournment?
I'll move adjournment.
Atta girl. Thanks, Cynthia. We're adjourned. See y'all.